They called them the Ghost Girls, two identical twins so broken by trauma the 10 nannies had fled in terror within 6 months. The billionaire CEO mother had tried everything: therapists, specialists, medication. Nothing worked. Then a night shift janitor with calloused hands and a deaf son did what no expert could. He reached them in the silence. But this isn't a fairy tale about instant healing. This is about what happens when broken people find each other in the dark and refuse to let go. Stay until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The emergency alarm echoed through the crystalline corridors of Horizon Elite Academy's daycare center at precisely 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that would change 5 lives forever. 23 floors above Michigan Avenue, where Chicago's wealthy deposited their children like precious cargo, chaos had become routine in room 12. Noah Carter heard the screaming before he saw it. He'd been pushing his janitor's cart down the west hallway, the wheels squeaking against imported Italian marble that cost more per square foot than his entire month's rent. The afternoon sun slanted through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in shades of amber and gold that felt almost mocking in their beauty. His shift didn't officially start for another 2 hours, but he'd come early. He always came early. Anything to avoid the empty apartment where his wife's absence still occupied every room like a ghost he couldn't exorcise. The voice that shattered the corporate serenity belonged to Sandra Kowalski, the 9th nanny in 6 months. And she wasn't just yelling, she was shrieking. "I'm done! You hear me? Done with this insanity!" Noah's first instinct was to keep walking. Rule number 1 of being invisible staff in a building full of people who looked through you: don't get involved. He'd perfected the art over 8 months of night shifts. Head down, earbuds in, even when the music wasn't playing, exist in the spaces between their notice. The maintenance supervisor, Marcus, had warned him on day 1. These people got more money than God and less patience than a toddler on a sugar crash. You see drama? You become a ghost. You understand me, Carter? He'd understood. He'd needed this job too desperately to risk it, but something made him stop that afternoon. Maybe it was the particular pitch of Sandra's fury, not anger exactly, but fear wrapped in indignation. Maybe it was the silence that followed, thick and suffocating. Or maybe it was just that he'd become too familiar with the sound of adults failing children, and his body moved before his mind could stop it. Noah left his cart by the wall and approached room 12's doorway, staying just outside the frame. The scene inside looked like the aftermath of a small, localized tornado. Toys scattered across the floor like shrapnel. Overturned chairs, a bookshelf emptied of its contents, picture books spread open like broken wings. In the far corner, behind an overturned play kitchen, 2 identical little girls sat with their backs pressed against the wall, so motionless they could have been photographs. 4 years old, maybe 5. Dark curly hair pulled into identical ponytails. Identical dresses, navy blue with white collars. Identical expressions of absolute terrifying blankness. Sandra stood in the center of the destruction, her designer bag already on her shoulder, her carefully applied makeup now streaked with tears of frustration. She was pointing at the girls with a shaking hand, her voice cracking. "You want to know what's wrong with them? Everything. They don't talk, they don't play, they don't cry. They just stare. Like they're not even human. Like they're watching you, judging you, planning something." She cut herself off, pressing her hand to her mouth. "I can't. I have a master's degree in early childhood development. I've worked with special needs kids, troubled kids, kids from war zones, but these two?" She laughed, a brittle sound that had no humor in it. "These two are wrong. Something's fundamentally wrong with them." One of the center's administrators, a thin woman named Patricia with a permanent frown line between her eyebrows, stood near the door wringing her hands. "Sandra, please, if you could just—" "No." Sandra cut her off. "No more, just give it time. No more they're processing trauma. I'm not a therapist, I'm a nanny, and I will not spend another day with children who look at me like I'm an experiment. You know what one of them did this morning? Just walked up to me while I was cleaning up breakfast and whispered, actually whispered, 'You're going to leave like the others.' What 4-year-old says that? What kind of mother raises children who—" "That's enough." Patricia's voice went cold. "You're speaking about Mr. Rivers's daughters." The name dropped like a stone into deep water. Mr. Elias Rivers, or rather, his widow, CEO Victoria Rivers, who'd taken over Rivers Global Technologies 18 months ago when her husband's helicopter went down in Lake Michigan. 32 years old, billionaire, one of Forbes' most powerful women under 40, and by all accounts, a mother who'd tried everything medical science and unlimited resources could provide to help her daughters recover from watching their father die. Nothing had worked. Sandra grabbed her bag tighter. I don't care whose children they are. I'm not equipped for this. Find someone else. Find 10 someone else's. See if they last longer than I did. She pushed past Patricia, past Noah, didn't even register his presence, and disappeared down the hallway, her heels clicking a frantic rhythm against the marble. Silence rushed in to fill the space she'd vacated. Patricia turned to the girls, and Noah watched her face cycle through frustration, pity, and finally resignation. Eleanor, Luna, you cannot keep doing this. You cannot keep making the caregivers leave. Your mother is... She stopped, shoulders sagging. Your mother is trying so hard. The twins didn't respond, didn't blink, just sat there like matching porcelain dolls, their small hands folded in their laps, their dark eyes fixed on something Noah couldn't see. He'd noticed before that they almost never looked directly at people, always slightly to the left or right, as if the actual person was too bright to see clearly. Patricia pulled out her phone, already dialing. This is Patricia Chen at the daycare center. I need to speak with Ms. Rivers immediately. Yes, I'll hold. She glanced back at the twins, and Noah heard her mutter under her breath, God help us all. He should have walked away then, should have retrieved his cart, minded his business, stayed invisible. Instead, he found himself stepping into the room. Patricia looked up, startled. Oh, you're one of the night custodians, aren't you? I'm sorry, we'll have this cleaned up before... I can do it, Noah said quietly. The cleanup. Give you time to handle things. She studied him for a moment, really looked at him, probably for the first time since he'd started working there. Noah knew what she saw. 32 years old, but looking older, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. Dark blonde hair that needed cutting, kept short because longer hair required effort he didn't have. Gray eyes that used to smile more. Work clothes. Dark blue janitor's uniform with N. Carter embroidered over the pocket. Calloused hands that had built houses before they'd pushed brooms. That's very kind, Patricia said slowly, but I'm not sure. Ms. Chen? The voice on her phone crackled through. I have Ms. Rivers for you. Patricia's expression shifted immediately to something more professional. She nodded at Noah, permission or dismissal, he wasn't sure, and stepped into the hallway, already explaining the situation in the carefully diplomatic language of someone who'd had this conversation too many times. And just like that, Noah was alone with the ghost girls. He stood very still for a moment, aware that sudden movements might shatter whatever fragile equilibrium existed in this space. The late afternoon light coming through the windows had that particular golden quality that happened in Chicago right before dusk, when the whole city seemed to pause and hold its breath. Outside, far below, he could see traffic moving in silent rivers of red and white lights. Up here, the only sound was the faint hum of the building's ventilation system and his own breathing. The twins hadn't moved, hadn't acknowledged his presence at all. Noah had two choices: clean and leave, or something else. Something stupidly risky for a man who couldn't afford to lose his job, who had a son depending on him, who had no business getting involved in rich people's problems. But he'd seen that look before. That absolute stillness that wasn't calm, but survival. That desperate attempt to become so small, so quiet, so invisible that maybe the universe would forget to hurt you again. He'd seen it in the hospital mirrors after the accident, when his own reflection had looked like a stranger's. He'd seen it in his son's eyes those first terrible weeks, when Leo had woken up to a world that had taken his mother and his hearing in one violent moment. He'd seen what happened when adults looked at a traumatized child and decided they were the problem. Noah walked slowly to one of the overturned chairs, set it upright, and sat down. Not close to the girls, that would be threatening, but not by the door either. That would seem like escape was his priority. Somewhere in between, at an angle where they could see him without having to look directly at him. He didn't speak, didn't try to coax them out, didn't make promises or offer empty comfort. He just sat. After a moment, he reached down and began picking up the scattered toys, moving with deliberate slowness. A stuffed elephant, a set of wooden blocks, a picture book about a bear who was afraid of the dark. He handled each object with care, placing them gently into their proper bins and shelves. No judgment in his movements, no frustration, just quiet restoration of order. 5 minutes passed. 10. Outside, he could hear Patricia's muffled voice still on the phone, the conversation apparently going poorly based on the increasingly strained tone. Noah continued cleaning. He'd learned patience the hard way, in the months after the accident when Leo had stopped signing, stopped communicating at all. The therapist had said to give him time. The grief counselors had said to create safe spaces. Everyone had advice, but the only thing that actually worked was just being there. Present, patient, proving through action, not words, that he wasn't going anywhere. He picked up a plastic cup that had rolled under a table and noticed something, a slight shift in his peripheral vision. One of the twins had turned her head maybe 2 degrees in his direction, not looking at him directly but aware now, tracking his movements. Noah set the cup on the counter and crouched down to gather a collection of crayons scattered across the floor. Someone, probably Sandra, in frustration, had dumped out the entire art supply box. He began sorting them by color without really thinking about it, the repetitive task occupying his hands while his mind stayed quiet. Most people leave faster. The voice was so soft, Noah almost thought he'd imagined it. But when he looked up, one of the twins, he had no idea which one, was staring at him now. Actually staring, her dark eyes finally focusing directly on his face. He didn't react with surprise or excitement, just met her gaze calmly and said, "I'm not most people." The angry lady said we're wrong. This came from the other twin, her voice barely above a whisper, but steady, rehearsed almost, like she'd heard it enough times to claim it as fact. Noah placed a red crayon in the box, then an orange one, continuing his task. The angry lady was scared. Sometimes when people are scared, they say things that aren't true. "Are you scared?" The first twin again. "No." "Why not?" He considered the question seriously, giving it the weight it deserved. "Because I've met scared before. You two? You're not scary, you're just careful." Silence stretched between them, but it felt different now. Less like a wall and more like a space they were all learning to exist in together. "I'm Eleanor," one of them said finally. "But people call me Ellie. That's Luna." She pointed to her sister. "I'm Noah." He held up the blue crayon he'd just picked up. "This your favorite color?" Ellie shook her head. Luna raised her hand slightly, a tiny gesture. Noah tossed the crayon gently toward Luna. It landed a foot away from her, close enough to reach without threatening her space. She looked at it for a long moment, then slowly picked it up, her small fingers wrapping around it like it was something precious. "My son likes blue too," Noah said conversationally, continuing to sort crayons. "Says it's the quietest color." "Quietest?" Ellie's head tilted slightly. "Colors aren't loud or quiet." "Maybe not for you. For him they are." Noah paused, then decided to offer something true. "He's deaf, lost his hearing in an accident. He says some colors feel loud in his head and some feel quiet. Blue's his favorite quiet one." Both girls were watching him now, their identical faces showing the first signs of genuine curiosity. "How does he talk?" Luna asked. "Sign language, like this." Noah raised his hands and signed his son's name, Leo. The letters came naturally now, after a year of learning, practicing, becoming fluent in the language his son needed him to speak. "That's beautiful," Ellie whispered. "Can you teach us?" Something in Noah's chest cracked open. "Yeah," he said. "I can teach you." He showed them a few simple signs. Hello, thank you, friend. Their small hands copied his movements with surprising precision, their faces losing that glazed, distant look for the first time. They were just kids. Just 2 little girls who'd been drowning, and everyone kept expecting them to save themselves. The door opened and Patricia stepped back in, her phone call clearly finished, her expression grim. She stopped short when she saw the scene. The room mostly cleaned, the girls sitting closer to Noah now, their hands moving in approximations of sign language while he patiently corrected their finger positions. Mr. Carter, she said carefully, what exactly are you doing? Noah stood up slowly, brushing off his knees. Just cleaning up, ma'am. The girls were helping me. Patricia looked between him and the twins, her professional mask slipping enough to show genuine confusion. They were helping? They're good at it, Noah said simply. Ellie raised her hand and signed, "Thank you," to him. The gesture still clumsy but earnest. Luna did the same a second later. Patricia's eyes went wide. They've never... She stopped herself, regaining composure. Ms. Rivers is on her way. She'll be here in 20 minutes. She wants to discuss options. Translation: she wanted to find another solution for her impossible daughters. Noah nodded. I should get back to work then. Wait. Patricia's voice stopped him at the door. She was studying him with a new intensity. How long have you worked here? 8 months? And you've never mentioned being able to work with special needs children. Didn't know I could, Noah said honestly. Never tried before. He could see her mind working, calculations being made. Then she pulled out her phone again. Don't go far. Miss Rivers may want to speak with you. Noah felt a cold thread of anxiety wind through his gut. Speaking with Victoria Rivers seemed like a terrible idea for roughly 100 reasons, starting with, she's your employer's employer, and ending with, stay invisible, remember? But he nodded and stepped into the hallway, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. Through the gap, he could see the twins had gotten up and were exploring the room now, still quiet but moving at least, touching toys they'd ignored before, pointing things out to each other in whispers. He walked back to his cart, gripped the handle, and tried to process what had just happened. He'd been in that room maybe 30 minutes, had barely done anything except sit there and treat them like they were people instead of problems. And somehow, impossibly, it had been enough. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor who watched Leo after school. Leo wants to know if you're bringing home pizza tonight. He's wearing me down with the puppy eyes. Noah smiled despite himself and typed back. Tell him if he finishes his math homework, yes. 3 dots appeared then. He says that's blackmail. I told him that's parenting. See you at 6. Noah glanced at his watch, 4:15 p.m. His actual shift started at 5 o'clock p.m. He should go prep his supplies in the custodial closet, review the checklist Marcus left him, be ready to work. Instead, he found himself lingering in the hallway, within earshot of room 12, waiting for he wasn't sure what. Other staff members passed by, a few teachers heading home, an administrator carrying files. They nodded at him, the bare minimum of acknowledgement, and kept walking. The invisible man in the blue uniform, he'd gotten used to it. After the accident, when his whole life had exploded and reassembled into something he barely recognized, he'd actually welcomed the anonymity. At his old job, he'd been Noah Carter, master carpenter, the guy who could build anything if you gave him time and good wood. People knew him, respected him. But after the accident, after Emily died and Leo lost his hearing and Noah lost his ability to hold a hammer without shaking, that respect had started feeling like pressure, like everyone was watching to see if he'd fall apart. So he'd walked away from carpentry, taken the night janitor job because it paid enough to keep them afloat and required almost no human interaction. Perfect for a man who'd forgotten how to be around people who weren't grieving. But standing in that hallway, thinking about those 2 little girls and their matching expressions of desperate hope when he'd signed to them, for the first time in a year, he felt something other than the dull ache of survival. He felt useful. The elevator down the hall dinged. The doors opened and a woman stepped out, moving like a controlled storm, all-purpose, and barely contained energy despite the elegant navy suit and heels that probably cost more than Noah's car. Victoria Rivers didn't look like the magazine photos he'd seen posted in the building's lobby. Those showed someone polished, powerful, smiling with white teeth that were probably veneered. This woman looked exhausted. She was beautiful in that way rich people often were. Good bones and better maintenance, dark hair swept into a professional chignon, makeup that somehow made her look both flawless and severe. But her eyes, dark like her daughter's, had shadows underneath that no concealer could fully hide. She couldn't have been much past 30, but something about her carried the weight of someone much older. Patricia materialized from a side office and immediately fell into step beside her, speaking in low, urgent tones. Noah couldn't hear the conversation, but he could read body language well enough. Victoria's jaw was set, her hands gripping her designer bag like it was a lifeline. They disappeared into room 12. Noah stood frozen, debating with himself. Leave. This was not his business. These were not his kids. He was a janitor who'd had one good moment with two troubled children, and that didn't make him qualified for anything except pushing his cart to the next hallway. But then he heard Victoria's voice through the door, tight with controlled emotion. Show me. And Patricia's response. The janitor. I don't know how to explain it. They responded to him. Noah's feet were moving before his brain caught up. He knocked softly on the doorframe and stepped into view. All three women, Victoria, Patricia, and an assistant who'd apparently joined them, turned to look at him. The twins, who'd been playing quietly with blocks in the corner, looked up too. Luna's face brightened slightly. Ellie raised her hand and signed hello. Hello to him. Noah signed back automatically, then realized what he'd done when Victoria's sharp intake of breath cut through the room. You know sign language. It wasn't a question. Victoria's voice was cultured, controlled, but Noah heard the crack in it. You taught them. Just a few words, ma'am. Show me. Victoria crossed the room in 4 strides and stood in front of him, her eyes intense enough that Noah had to resist the urge to step back. Up close, he could see she'd been crying recently, the faint redness around her eyes that even expensive makeup couldn't quite hide. Show me what you taught them. Noah looked past her to the twins. They were watching their mother with an expression he recognized, wariness mixed with desperate hope, like they wanted to reach out but had learned it hurt too much when people didn't reach back. He signed to them, "Want to show your mom what you learned?" Ellie and Luna exchanged glances, some silent twin communication passing between them. Then, slowly, they stood up and walked over. Not to their mother, not quite, but close enough that when they raised their hands and signed hello and thank you and friend, Victoria could see every gesture clearly. The sound Victoria made wasn't quite a sob, but it was close. She dropped to her knees, not caring that her expensive suit was hitting the floor, and reached out to her daughters. For a moment, Noah thought they'd pull away. Their body language had gone rigid, uncertain. But then Luna leaned in slightly, just a little, and Ellie followed. Victoria wrapped her arms around them carefully, like they were made of glass, and pressed her face into their hair. "You spoke," she whispered. "You finally spoke." "They didn't speak, ma'am," Noah said quietly. "They signed. It's different." Victoria looked up at him over her daughters' heads, mascara now definitely smudged, and Noah saw something in her face that made his chest tight. Naked gratitude mixed with devastation, because she was realizing right there in real time that a stranger had reached her children in 30 minutes when she'd been trying for 18 months. "Who are you?" she asked. "Noah Carter, night custodian. I don't care what you work. I care that my daughters responded to you when they won't respond to anyone else." She stood up, keeping one hand on each twin's shoulder. "Do you have children?" "A son, Leo. He's 7. "And he's deaf?" "Yes, ma'am." Victoria's mind was clearly racing, plans forming behind her eyes. "I want to hire you." Noah blinked. "Ma'am, I already work here. For the building maintenance. No, I want to hire you specifically. For Eleanor and Luna." She was speaking faster now, the way people with resources spoke when they identified a problem and started throwing money at solutions. "Whatever you're making now, I'll triple it. You'll be their full-time caregiver. I'll arrange everything with building management. Ms. Rivers." Noah's voice came out firmer than he intended. Both Patricia and the assistant looked shocked that he'd interrupted her, but he pressed on. "I appreciate the offer, but I can't. Can't or won't. Both." He chose his words carefully. "I don't have training for this. I'm not a nanny or a therapist. I just cleaned up toys and was patient. That's not worth tripling anyone's salary." "You're wrong." Victoria's voice went sharp. "Do you know how many professionals I've hired? How much money I've spent on specialists who have every certification and credential imaginable? None of them could do what you just did. None of them saw my daughters as anything except a problem to solve." The twins were watching this exchange with wide eyes, their hands still making small signing motions to each other. their own private language forming already. Noah ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of this decision pressing down on him. I have a son who needs me. My shift ends at 2 a.m. I need to be there when he wakes up, get him to school, make sure... Bring him. Victoria said it like it was obvious. Bring your son. Let the children learn together. I'll hire you both if that's what it takes. Miss Rivers, please. The word came out raw, stripped of all her CEO polish. I've watched my daughters disappear for 18 months. I've tried everything. Today is the first time I've seen them look alive since their father died. If you can do that, if there's even a chance you can keep doing that, I'm begging you to try. Noah looked at the twins, really looked at them. Ellie had moved closer to him during the conversation, her small hand now resting on his knee like he was something solid she could lean on. Luna was signing friend over and over, the motion almost compulsive. He thought about Leo, waiting at home, probably already starting his homework because he was a good kid who knew his dad needed him to be. He thought about their tiny apartment with the leaky faucet Noah kept meaning to fix. He thought about the night shifts that paid just enough to keep them fed and clothed, but left him hollowed out and exhausted, unable to give Leo the attention he deserved. He thought about Emily and what she would have said. She'd always been the brave one, the one who said yes to hard things because they mattered. 2 weeks, Noah heard himself say. Trial period. If it doesn't work, we go back to how things were. No hard feelings. Victoria's relief was palpable. 2 weeks. Yes. Whatever you need. And I wanted in writing that my main job is still with building maintenance. I'm not losing that security if this falls apart. Done. And Leo comes with me. Non-negotiable. I already said yes to that. Noah took a deep breath. Then I guess we have a deal, Ms. Rivers. Victoria, she corrected, sticking out her hand. If you're going to help save my daughters, you're going to call me Victoria. Her grip was firm, determined. The handshake of someone used to closing deals and moving forward. Noah's hand was rough with calluses, marked by years of physical labor. When they shook, it felt less like an agreement and more like a pact. Something neither of them fully understood yet, but both knew would change everything. Patricia was already on her phone, presumably rearranging schedules and contracts. The assistant was taking notes. Victoria was talking about logistics, schedules, compensation packages. And the twins? They'd gone back to their corner, but now they were building something with the blocks instead of just sitting. Still quiet, still careful. But present in a way they hadn't been an hour ago. Noah's phone buzzed again. Mrs. Chen. Leo says he's done with his homework and wants extra cheese. I told him to dream big. He typed back, tell him we're going to be dreaming pretty big for a while. Then he looked up at Victoria, at Patricia, at this whole impossible situation he'd just walked into, and wondered what the hell he'd just agreed to. But when Ellie looked over her shoulder and signed thank you to him one more time, something in his chest eased. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe he was setting himself up for failure. Maybe he'd lose his job and his stability and end up worse off than when he started. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd found a way to be useful again. To matter. To take all the pain of the last year and transform it into something that helped someone else survive their own darkness. Outside the windows, the Chicago sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The ghost girls were still sitting in their corner, but they weren't ghosts anymore. They were just kids. Scared kids who needed someone to see them clearly. Noah had spent a year learning how to see his son clearly through silence and grief. Maybe he could do the same for 2 little girls who'd lost their voice when they lost their father. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. But standing in that room, watching the way Luna carefully handed her sister a blue block, and Ellie smiled, actually smiled, Noah felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Fragile and uncertain, but hope nonetheless. So, Victoria said, pulling him back to the present, when can you start? Noah looked at his watch, 4:47 p.m. His shift started in 13 minutes. Leo was waiting at home for pizza. His whole carefully constructed life of routine and survival was about to be completely upended. Tomorrow, he said. I start tomorrow. Victoria nodded, already moving on to the next problem, the next solution. But before she turned away completely, she looked at him one more time, and Noah saw past the CEO, past the polished exterior, to the mother underneath, terrified and desperate, and clinging to the first piece of hope she'd found in 18 months. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You have no idea what this means." Noah just nodded, because he did know. He knew exactly what it meant to watch your child suffer and feel completely powerless to stop it. He knew what it meant to lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering if you were doing everything wrong, if you'd already failed them beyond repair. He knew what it meant to meet someone who saw your child as a person instead of a problem. As he left room 12 to start his actual shift, Noah passed his reflection in the hallway windows. For just a moment, he didn't look like a ghost anymore either. He looked like a man with a purpose, a man with something to lose, which meant he finally had something worth fighting for again. Behind him, through the closing door, he heard one of the twins laugh, a small sound, barely there, but real. And Noah thought, maybe we're all just scared kids in the corner, waiting for someone patient enough to sit with us in the silence until we remember how to speak. Maybe that's all healing ever is, someone refusing to leave until you remember you're not alone. He pushed his cart down the hallway toward the familiar rhythm of his night shift, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. The ghost girls had found their voice in silence. Now they just had to learn how to sing. Noah stood outside his apartment door at 6:43 p.m. with 2 pizzas balanced in one hand and his keys in the other, trying to figure out how to explain to his 7-year-old son that their entire life was about to change. Again. The key turned in the lock and he pushed the door open to find Leo sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, his homework spread out on the coffee table, still wearing his dinosaur t-shirt from school. Mrs. Chen sat on the couch knitting something that might have been a scarf, or might have been a very confused sweater. With her, you could never tell until it was finished. Leo looked up and his whole face transformed. He scrambled to his feet and ran over, signing rapidly. "Pizza! You actually brought pizza! Mrs. Chen said you were bluffing." "I never bluff about pizza," Noah signed back, setting the boxes on their small kitchen counter. "How was school?" Leo's hands moved in fluid, practiced motions. "Boring. We learned about the solar system, but I already knew everything because of the library books. Tommy Richards said deaf people can't be astronauts, but I told him that's stupid because space is already silent." Noah felt his chest tighten with pride. A year ago, Leo hadn't been signing at all, hadn't been communicating, had just existed in this hollow space where grief lived. Now here he was, arguing about astronauts and defending himself with the fierce logic of a 7-year-old who'd learned too early that the world wasn't always fair. Mrs. Chen stood up, gathering her knitting into an impossibly large bag that seemed to function as a portable everything drawer. He did all his homework without complaint, which means either he's getting mature or he really wanted that pizza. She switched from signing to speaking, addressing Noah directly. "You look different. Something happened at work?" Noah hesitated. Mrs. Chen was 67, had lived in the apartment next door for 30 years, and had appointed herself Leo's honorary grandmother the day they'd moved in. She'd watched Leo every day after school for 8 months, refusing to take more than a token payment, saying her own grandchildren lived in Seattle and she missed having little ones around. She'd earned the right to honesty. "Something happened," he admitted. "I need to talk to Leo about it. Big stuff." Her eyebrows rose, but she didn't push. "Well, you know where I am if you need anything. Leo, sweetheart," she signed as she spoke. "You be good for your papa, okay?" Leo signed back. "I'm always good." "You're always something," she corrected with a smile and let herself out. The door closed and suddenly it was just the two of them in their small apartment with its threadbare furniture and walls that needed repainting and the life they'd built from the wreckage of before. Noah grabbed 2 plates, served up slices, and joined Leo at the coffee table. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Leo had learned to read his father's moods well, too well probably, and could tell when Noah needed a moment to organize his thoughts. The kid was 7, going on 40 sometimes. Finally, Noah set down his pizza and signed, "I need to tell you about something that happened today, something that's going to change things for us." Leo's hands stilled mid-bite. His eyes went cautious. Changes had never been good in his short life. Changes meant hospital rooms and funerals and learning to navigate a world that had suddenly gone silent. "Good change," Noah added quickly. "At least, I think it's good." But I need to know what you think. He explained it as simply as he could. The two little girls, the signing, the mother who was desperate, the offer to help. He left out the parts about wealth and billionaires because that didn't matter. What mattered was that there were kids who needed help, and Noah thought maybe he could provide it. So they're like me? Leo signed when Noah finished. The girls, they can't talk. They can talk, Noah corrected. They just don't want to. They're scared. Something bad happened to their dad and they kind of shut down, stopped letting people in. Leo considered this seriously, his young face thoughtful. Like I did, after Mom. Noah's throat went tight. They didn't talk about Emily often. It still hurt too much, the wound too fresh even after a year. But Leo's matter-of-fact acknowledgement of his own trauma was both heartbreaking and hopeful. Yeah, Noah signed, like you did. And remember how the therapist kept trying to make you talk about feelings, and it just made you more shut down. But then when we learned to sign, when we found a way to communicate that felt safer, I came back, Leo finished. His hands moved slowly now, processing. So you're going to teach them to sign? Like you taught me? I'm going to try. But here's the thing, the really big thing. Their mom wants you to come too, wants you to meet them, spend time with them. She thinks maybe having another kid around who understands what it's like to lose something big, maybe that would help. Leo's expression cycled through several emotions too quickly for Noah to track. Uncertainty, curiosity, fear. And then, unexpectedly, something that looked like excitement. Would I still go to my school? He signed. Yes, this would be after school, and some days we'd all be together, you, me, and the girls. Like I don't know, like a team, maybe. What are their names? Eleanor and Luna. They're 4 years old. They're twins. Twins, Leo repeated, his fingers forming the sign with wonder. Like in that book about the sisters who solve mysteries? Maybe. I don't know them well enough yet to know if they solve mysteries. Leo picked up another slice of pizza but didn't eat it, just held it while his mind worked. Noah waited, letting his son process. This was Leo's decision too. If he wasn't comfortable, Noah would figure out something else. Finally, Leo looked up and signed, Are they nice? I think so. They're scared right now, so they're very quiet, but one of them held my hand before I left. I think underneath the scared, they're probably very nice. Did you tell them about Mom? The question caught Noah off guard. A little. I told them I understood what it felt like when someone you love disappears. Leo nodded slowly. Then, okay, I'll meet them. But Papa. His hands moved firmly. If they're mean to me because I'm deaf, we leave. Deal? Deal. But Leo, they won't be mean, I promise. You can't promise that. Tommy Richards is mean and you didn't know he would be. Fair point. Noah reached across the table and squeezed his son's shoulder. You're right, I can't promise. But I can promise that if anyone is ever mean to you about anything, we deal with it together. That's what teams do. Leo smiled then, a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes the way Emily's used to. Okay, Team Carter. Team Carter, Noah agreed. They finished their pizza and Leo went to brush his teeth while Noah cleaned up. As he wiped down the counter, his phone buzzed with an email notification. Subject line, Employment Agreement, Confidential. Noah opened it to find a contract from Rivers Global Technologies. He scrolled through the legal language, his eyes catching on numbers that made his stomach drop. The salary Victoria was offering was more than 3 times what he made as a janitor. The benefits package included health insurance that would actually cover Leo's therapy appointments. There was a clause about flexible scheduling, another about professional development opportunities. It was too good. Noah had learned that lesson early in life. If something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. There had to be a catch somewhere in these pages of legal text. He was still reading when Leo emerged from the bathroom in his pajamas, hair damp from washing his face. The kid climbed onto the couch and patted the seat next to him, their nightly ritual. Noah joined him and Leo immediately curled into his side, small and warm, and everything that mattered in Noah's world. Story? Leo signed. Noah thought for a moment, then began signing a story he'd told before, but that bore repeating. Once there was a boy who lived in a kingdom where everyone spoke so loudly that the ground shook. The boy didn't speak like that. He spoke in whispers that only special people could hear. At first he thought this made him broken, but then he met a wizard who said, "You're not broken, you just speak a different language. And different languages can say things that loud voices never could." Leo's eyes were already drooping, but he signed, "What did the whispers say?" They said the things that mattered most. Truth, kindness, bravery, all the things that don't need volume to be powerful. "That's a good story, Papa." "Yeah," Noah agreed, holding his son closer. "It is." Leo fell asleep within minutes, his breathing evening out into the soft rhythm of childhood rest. Noah stayed there on the couch, his son in his arms, staring at the contract still open on his phone, and wondering if he was making the biggest mistake of his life or the best decision. Tomorrow, he'd find out. The next morning arrived too quickly and with too much coffee required. Noah got Leo up, fed, dressed, and out the door to catch the school bus by 7:30 a.m. Then he returned to the apartment, showered, put on the cleanest of his work uniforms, and tried to convince himself that he looked like someone qualified to help traumatized children. The mirror wasn't cooperating with that narrative. His phone rang at 8:15 a.m., Victoria Rivers, calling from a number that had probably never dialed a janitor before yesterday. "Mr. Carter, good morning. I wanted to confirm you're still planning to come in today." "Yes, ma'am. I thought I'd come by around 9 o'clock, if that works." "Perfect. Come to the executive floor, 25th. Tell security you're meeting me. We'll go over expectations, and you can spend some time with Eleanor and Luna before their occupational therapy appointment at 11 o'clock. They have OT? Twice a week. They also have speech therapy on Mondays and Wednesdays, play therapy on Thursdays, and sessions with a child psychologist every other Friday. Their schedules are extensive." Noah heard the exhaustion in her voice, the weight of a mother who'd tried everything medical intervention could offer and watched it all fail. "And none of it's working," he said quietly. A long pause. "No, none of it's working. That's why you're here, Mr. Carter." "Noah," he corrected. "If I'm going to work with your daughters, you should call me Noah." "Then I'm Victoria." "Not Miss Rivers, not ma'am. Just Victoria." "Okay, Victoria. I'll see you at 9 o'clock. He hung up and looked around his apartment one more time, really looked at it. The small space that had been their refuge for the past 8 months, the couch where he'd held Leo through nightmares, the kitchen where they'd learned to cook simple meals together, the corner where Leo did his homework every afternoon. This felt like the last morning of before. Tomorrow would be after, and there was no way to know yet if after would be better or worse. Noah grabbed his keys, locked the door behind him, and headed for the L train that would take him back to the building where his life had split into 2 paths yesterday afternoon. The executive floor of Rivers Global Technologies looked nothing like the building's daycare center. Where the childcare space was all primary colors and soft edges, this was steel and glass and the kind of modern minimalism that probably cost a fortune to achieve. Noah stepped off the elevator and immediately felt out of place in his janitor's uniform among the suited executives and clicking heels. A young woman in a sharp blazer approached him immediately. "Mr. Carter?" "I'm Jennifer, Ms. Rivers' assistant. She's expecting you. This way, please." She led him through a maze of glass-walled offices and open workspaces where people typed on computers that probably cost more than Noah's monthly rent. A few heads turned as they passed. The janitor being escorted through the executive suite was apparently noteworthy, but Jennifer moved with the kind of purpose that discouraged questions. They stopped at a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The view was stunning. Boats on the water, the city sprawling in every direction, the sky that particular shade of blue that only happened in Chicago mornings. Victoria sat at her desk, her attention focused on a laptop screen, already dressed in another expensive suit. This one, charcoal gray that made her look both powerful and severe. When she glanced up and saw Noah, something in her expression softened fractionally. "Noah, come in. Jennifer, close the door, please." The door clicked shut, and suddenly it was just the two of them in this space that screamed success and money and a world Noah had never inhabited. "Sit," Victoria said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from her desk. We should talk before you meet with the girls. Noah sat, trying not to think about how much his uniform contrasted with the expensive furniture. Victoria pulled off her reading glasses and studied him for a long moment. I want to be very clear about something, she began. I'm hiring you because yesterday my daughters showed the first signs of responsiveness they've had in 18 months. But I need you to understand, I'm desperate, not delusional. I don't expect you to magically fix them in 2 weeks. I don't expect miracles. Then what do you expect? Noah asked. Progress. Any progress. Something that proves we're moving in the right direction instead of watching them disappear further into themselves. She leaned forward, her hands clasped on the desk. Tell me about your son, about what worked for him. Noah took a breath, organizing his thoughts. After the accident, Leo shut down completely, stopped communicating. The doctor said it was a combination of the physical trauma, losing his hearing, and the psychological trauma of losing his mother. They wanted to start intensive therapy immediately, speech therapy, psychological intervention, the works. What did you do? Nothing. For about 2 weeks, I did nothing except be there. I learned sign language as fast as I could, but I didn't push him to use it. I just signed everything I was doing, everything I was thinking, made it available without making it required. Victoria nodded slowly. And then? Then one morning I was making breakfast and he came into the kitchen and signed, hungry. Just that one word. But it was the first time he'd communicated anything in 2 weeks. So I made him his favorite, chocolate chip pancakes, and while we ate, I signed stories. Didn't ask him to respond, just filled the silence with something he could access if he wanted to. How long before he came all the way back? Noah smiled sadly. He hasn't. Not all the way. There's a part of Leo that's still in that car, still watching his mother die, still processing what it means that his whole world changed in an instant. But he's present now. He engages. He's a kid who happens to be dealing with trauma instead of just a walking trauma case. And you think that approach will work with Eleanor and Luna? I think pushing them hasn't worked. So maybe giving them space while showing them safe ways to communicate, yeah, maybe that works. Or maybe it doesn't, and we're back where we started in 2 weeks. Victoria stood up and walked to the windows, her back to Noah, her silhouette sharp against the bright morning light. Their father was everything to them. Elias was... Her voice cracked slightly. He was the parent who did bedtime stories and tea parties. I was always working, always traveling, building this company, proving I deserved to lead it. And then he died, and suddenly I was all they had, except I didn't know how to be what he was. I didn't know how to reach them. They're 4 years old, Noah said gently. They don't need you to be him. They need you to be present, to see them. Victoria turned back to face him, and Noah saw tears threatening at the corners of her eyes that she was visibly fighting to contain. I hired 14 therapists. 14. I flew in specialists from London and California. I read every book on childhood trauma. I did everything except... She stopped, swallowing hard. Except just sit with them, like you did. For 30 minutes, you did what I've been failing to do for 18 months. You weren't failing, Noah said firmly. You were trying to save them the only way you knew how, with resources and experts and solutions. There's no shame in that. But it didn't work. No, it didn't. So now we try something else. Victoria wiped at her eyes impatiently, recomposing herself with visible effort. The girls are in a private room down the hall. I cleared my morning schedule. I want to observe today, see how you interact with them. Is that acceptable? It's your morning to clear, Noah said. But yeah, that's fine. She grabbed her phone and a leather portfolio, then paused at the door. Noah, thank you for saying yes, for being willing to try when you had every reason to just walk away. Noah stood, following her out of the office. I've been where you are, desperate for someone to help your kid and finding nothing but closed doors. I won't promise I can fix this, but I promise I'll try. They walked together through the executive suite, down a hallway, to a room that had clearly been converted into something between a playroom and a home classroom. The girls were already there, sitting on a soft rug, dressed in matching pink dresses today. A young woman sat nearby with a tablet. Another nanny, Noah assumed, the replacement for Sandra, who'd probably last a few more days before the silence drove her away too. Eleanor and Luna looked up when the door opened. Their expressions were carefully blank until they saw Noah. Then something shifted, a slight relaxation in their shoulders, a hint of light in their dark eyes. "Hello?" Noah signed, walking into the room slowly. "Remember me?" Both girls nodded. Luna signed back hello with more confidence than yesterday. Ellie just stared at him like she was afraid he might be a dream that would vanish. "I brought someone to meet you," Noah continued, signing as he spoke for Victoria's benefit. "My son, Leo. He's at school right now, but later today he's going to come here. Is that okay?" The twins looked at each other, that silent communication again, then back at Noah. Ellie signed, "Will he like us?" Noah's heart cracked. "He's going to love you. He's a little nervous because he hasn't met you yet, but I told him you're nice and you're learning to sign like he does." "We practiced," Luna signed shyly. "Last night. Mommy found videos." Noah glanced at Victoria, who looked slightly embarrassed. "YouTube tutorials on sign language," she admitted. "We watched for 2 hours." "That's good," Noah said. "That's really good. Want to show me what you learned?" For the next 20 minutes, the girls demonstrated their newly acquired vocabulary. Simple signs for family, feelings, basic objects. They were clumsy, often mixing up hand shapes, but the effort was genuine. More importantly, they were engaged, present, looking at Noah directly instead of past him. The new nanny sat forgotten in the corner, her tablet idle in her hands, watching this interaction with visible confusion. Victoria stood near the door, her professional mask cracking occasionally to show naked hope underneath. Noah worked with the girls patiently, correcting their hand positions, teaching new signs, building a vocabulary they could use to express what words couldn't reach. He told them about Leo, about how he loved dinosaurs and the color blue, about how he was brave even when things were scary, about how he taught Noah that being different wasn't the same as being broken. "He sounds nice," Ellie signed. "He is nice, and he's excited to meet you. A little scared too, but mostly excited." "Why scared?" Luna asked, her small hands forming the question carefully. "Because making new friends is always a little scary. What if they don't like you? What if you do something wrong? Those are the things he's worried about." The twins considered this. Then Ellie signed, "We're scared too. Of everything." The honesty of it hit Noah in the chest. "I know," he signed back. "Being scared makes sense. Scary things happened. But you know what I learned? It's okay to be scared as long as you don't let being scared stop you from trying." "Trying what?" Luna asked. "Trying to live. Trying to connect with people. Trying to remember that even though bad things happen, good things can happen too." Victoria made a soft sound from across the room. When Noah glanced at her, she was pressing her hand to her mouth, tears now openly falling. They worked together for another hour, signing, playing simple games, building trust through consistency and patience. Noah didn't push them to talk about their father or their feelings. He just created space for them to exist without pressure, without expectation, without the weight of adult desperation making every moment feel like a test they might fail. At 10:45, Victoria's phone alarm went off. "Occupational therapy," she said, her voice still rough with emotion. "We need to leave in 5 minutes." "Do you have to go?" Ellie signed to Noah, her small face falling. "For now, but I'll be back this afternoon. With Leo. We'll all meet together. Sound good?" Both girls nodded, though neither looked happy about the separation. As Noah stood to leave, Luna grabbed his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his calloused palm like he was an anchor she couldn't bear to release. "You'll come back?" she signed with her free hand. "I promise," Noah signed back. "Team Carter keeps promises." "Team Carter?" Ellie's head tilted. "That's me and Leo. We're a team. And maybe, if you want, you could be on our team too." The girls' faces transformed with something Noah hadn't seen yet. Joy. Pure, unguarded, childlike joy. "We want that," they signed together, their movements synchronized. "We want to be on Team Carter." Noah looked up at Victoria and saw her crying openly now, not bothering to hide it anymore. Her daughters had just volunteered to be part of something, had just reached out instead of pulling away. It was a beginning. Small, fragile, but real. As Noah left the room, he heard Luna whisper to her sister, actual words, not signs. He came back. He really came back. And Ellie whispered in response, maybe people can stay. Maybe not everyone leaves. Noah stood in the hallway for a moment, letting those words sink in. That's what this was really about, wasn't it? Teaching 4-year-olds that loss didn't mean abandonment was inevitable, that trust could be rebuilt, that love could exist without the constant terror of it being ripped away. Victoria joined him in the hallway, her mascara ruined, her CEO composure completely shattered. They spoke, she breathed. They actually spoke to each other. Words. Baby steps, Noah cautioned. This doesn't mean they're suddenly fixed. I don't need fixed. I just need forward motion. And what just happened in there, that was forward. She reached out and gripped Noah's arm with surprising intensity. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, please. I'm not doing anything special, Victoria. I'm just showing up. No, she said firmly. You're seeing them. You're treating them like people who have something to say instead of problems that need solving. And somehow, impossibly, that's everything. They stood there in the hallway of the executive suite, a billionaire CEO and a janitor who'd stumbled into being something else, both of them understanding that they were standing at the beginning of something neither could fully predict or control. I need to pick up Leo from school at 3:00, Noah said finally. We'll come back here around 3:30? Perfect. I'll clear my afternoon. Victoria, you can't clear every afternoon. You run a company. I'm the CEO. I'll do whatever I need to do. Her voice was steel underneath the emotion. Nothing matters more than this, than them. I've missed 18 months of their lives being the CEO. I'm not missing any more. Noah nodded, understanding. Sometimes priorities shifted, and the only question was whether you shifted with them or kept moving in the wrong direction out of stubbornness. He left the building and spent the afternoon at a coffee shop, researching child trauma, reading articles about selective mutism, watching videos about play therapy techniques. He wasn't a professional and never would be, but he could at least be educated, could at least understand what he was walking into. At 2:45 p.m., he headed to Leo's school, arriving just as the final bell rang. Kids poured out in the chaotic wave of after-school energy, shouting, running, existing at volumes that must have been exhausting. Leo emerged near the back of the crowd, moving more carefully, his eyes scanning for Noah the way he always did. When he spotted his father, his whole face lit up, and he ran over, backpack bouncing. How was your day? Noah signed. Good. I told my teacher about meeting the twins, and she said I should draw them pictures. So I did. During free time. Want to see? Leo pulled out 3 crayon drawings from his backpack. One showed 2 girls holding hands under a smiling sun. Another showed all 4 of them, Noah, Leo, Ellie, and Luna, standing together. The third was more abstract, blue waves and a moon that Leo had labeled carefully in his best 7-year-old handwriting. For Luna because Noah said she likes the moon. These are perfect, Noah signed. They're going to love them. Are we going there now to meet them? Leo's hands moved quickly, excitement and nervousness warring in his expression. Yeah, buddy, we're going now. You ready? Leo took a deep breath, squared his small shoulders in a gesture Noah recognized. Pure bravery from someone who'd learned courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward anyway, and signed, Ready. They took the train back to the building together, Leo clutching his drawings, Noah trying not to let his own nervousness show. This mattered. If Leo and the twins didn't connect, if something went wrong, the whole fragile structure they'd started building would collapse. Victoria met them in the lobby, having apparently abandoned her office entirely for the afternoon. She'd changed out of her severe suit into dark jeans and a soft sweater, still expensive, but more approachable. More like a mother than a CEO. You must be Leo, she signed, her movements careful but comprehensible. She'd been practicing. Leo's eyes went wide. You know how to sign. I'm learning. Your dad is teaching me. Well, technically, YouTube is teaching me, but he's helping. Leo giggled, actual sound, rare for him but always precious when it happened, and signed, YouTube teaches everything. I learned about space from YouTube. Then you and I will get along perfectly, Victoria signed back. Ready to meet Eleanor and Luna? Leo nodded, gripping Noah's hand tighter. They rode the elevator up in silence, the numbers climbing, everyone lost in their own nervousness. When the doors opened on the 25th floor, Victoria led them down the hallway to a different room this time. Larger, brighter, with windows overlooking the city. The twins sat on beanbags by the window, dressed now in comfortable clothes instead of fancy dresses, their hair down from its usual tight ponytails. They looked more like regular kids and less like matched dolls. When they saw Noah, they jumped up immediately. When they saw Leo, they froze. For a long moment, nobody moved. 4 children in a room full of adult hope and expectation, all of them trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between stranger and friend. Then Leo stepped forward and signed, "Hi, I'm Leo. I brought you drawings." He held out the papers with both hands, an offering. Ellie and Luna approached slowly, taking the drawings with reverent care. They studied each one, their expressions softening. "Thank you," Ellie signed. "They're beautiful," Luna added. Leo beamed. Then he signed, "Want to see something cool? Watch this." He moved his hands in a complex series of movements, the sign for friend combined with the sign for brave, and something else Noah had taught him that meant people who are scared together but stay anyway. The twins watched, mesmerized. "What does that mean?" Ellie asked. "It means we're a team now," Leo signed. "Papa told me about Team Carter. I made up a special sign for it. Want to learn?" For the next 2 hours, Noah and Victoria watched their children build something that looked like friendship. Leo taught the twins his special signs. They showed him their favorite toys. They sat together on the floor and drew pictures. Leo's dinosaurs mixing with Ellie's flowers and Luna's stars. They didn't talk much with voices, but their hands never stopped moving, creating a conversation that needed no sound to carry meaning. At one point, Luna signed to Leo, "Are you sad that you can't hear?" Noah tensed, waiting for Leo's reaction, but his son just signed back honestly. "Sometimes. Mostly, I'm sad I can't remember my mom's voice, but being deaf isn't the sad part. The sad part is that she's gone." "Our dad is gone too," Ellie signed. "I know," Leo signed back. "That's why we understand each other. We're the people who lost someone important." The 4 children sat together then in a silence that felt less like absence and more like understanding. They didn't need words to communicate grief. It existed in the space between them, acknowledged and shared. Victoria reached over and gripped Noah's hand, squeezing hard. When he glanced at her, she was crying again, seemed to be her primary state these days, but smiling too. "They're going to be okay," she whispered. "All of them. They're going to figure out how to be okay together." "Yeah," Noah agreed. "I think they are." As the sun set outside the windows, painting Chicago in shades of orange and gold, Team Carter expanded from 2 to 4. 3 children who'd learned too young that the world could be cruel and unforgiving, and 1 man who'd learned that sometimes healing came not from experts or therapy or money, but from people willing to sit in the dark together and wait for light. The Ghost Girls were learning to speak again, and Leo was learning that being different could be a gift if you found the right people to share it with. Noah thought about the small wooden fish sitting on his workbench at home, the first carving he'd made in a year, created for 2 little girls he barely knew. Tomorrow he'd bring it. Tomorrow he'd start carving new things, birds and stars and hearts and whatever else they needed to hold on to. Because sometimes love was loud and obvious, but sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was carved carefully, patiently, until even broken things remembered how to be whole. 3 weeks later, Noah stood in his apartment at 6:00 a.m. with sawdust in his hair and a completed wooden bird in his hands, realizing that somewhere between the first carving and the 20th, his life had stopped feeling like survival and started feeling like living. The bird was for Ellie, who told him yesterday that she wanted to learn to fly. Not literally, she was 4, not delusional, but in the way that meant freedom. She'd signed it carefully, her small hands forming the words, "If I could fly, I could go anywhere. I wouldn't have to be scared anymore." Noah had stayed up past midnight, carving wings into the soft pine, getting the feathers just right, smoothing every edge until it was perfect. Because Ellie deserved perfect. They all did. Leo shuffled into the kitchen, still in his pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He'd taken to waking up early now that their days started at the Rivers building, wanting extra time to prepare his own surprises for the twins. This morning, he had a shoebox full of collected items: smooth rocks from the park, an interesting stick, 3 different types of leaves he'd pressed between book pages. More treasure for the treasure box? Noah signed, gesturing to Leo's collection. His son nodded enthusiastically. Luna said yesterday that treasures don't have to cost money. They just have to mean something. So I found things that mean adventure. He held up the stick. This one looks like a magic wand, and these rocks could be dragon eggs if you imagine hard enough. Noah felt his chest expand with pride. A year ago, Leo had barely been speaking. Now he was collecting dragon eggs for twin girls who'd adopted him as their unofficial older brother. Now he was creating magic out of sticks and stones and imagination. Get dressed, Noah signed. Victoria wants us there by 8 o'clock. She said something about a surprise. Good surprise or bad surprise? With Victoria, it's hard to tell until you're already in it. They'd learned that about her over the past weeks. Victoria Rivers was a woman who operated at 2 speeds, complete control or barely contained chaos. There was no middle ground. She'd throw herself completely into whatever she deemed important, which currently meant her daughters, and by extension Team Carter, with an intensity that was both admirable and occasionally exhausting. Noah and Leo arrived at the building 45 minutes later to find Victoria waiting in the lobby, practically vibrating with nervous energy. She dressed down again, still expensive. Everything she owned was expensive, but jeans and a sweater instead of her usual CEO armor. Her hair was in a ponytail instead of the severe chignon. She looked younger this way, less like a corporate warrior and more like what she actually was, a 32-year-old mother trying desperately not to fail her children. "You're early," she said, checking her watch. "Good. The girls are already upstairs and they're bursting with something they want to show you. Wouldn't tell me what. Just kept signing surprise over and over." "Should I be worried?" Noah asked. "Always," Victoria replied, but she was smiling. "But I think this is a good one." They rode the elevator up with Leo bouncing on his toes, his shoebox clutched to his chest. The doors opened on the 25th floor and they heard it immediately. Laughter. Real, genuine, childlike laughter echoing down the hallway. Noah and Victoria exchanged glances. 3 weeks ago, the twins had barely made sounds. Now they were laughing loud enough to hear from the elevator. They followed the sound to the main playroom and stopped in the doorway to witness something remarkable. Eleanor and Luna had built a blanket fort that took up half the room, chairs and couch cushions and sheets creating an elaborate structure. But that wasn't the surprising part. The surprising part was that they decorated the entire thing with drawings and signs they'd created themselves. Over the entrance hung a sheet of paper with careful crayon letters. Team Carter Secret Base. Inside the fort, visible through gaps in the blankets, were more drawings, pictures of all 4 of them. Pictures of the wooden carvings Noah had made, pictures of Leo's dinosaurs and Luna's moon, and Ellie's birds. "We made headquarters," Ellie signed excitedly, crawling out of the fort to greet them. "For the team, everyone needs headquarters." "Every good team does," Noah agreed, crouching down to her level. "Can I see inside?" Both twins grabbed his hands and pulled him toward the entrance. Leo followed without being asked, and Victoria hesitated only a moment before joining them. They all crawled into the fort together, 4 people and 3 children in a space barely big enough for 2, and it should have been cramped and uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like home. The twins had arranged all their treasures inside. Noah's carvings lined up carefully on a makeshift shelf. Leo's drawings taped to the blanket walls. Their collection of rocks and leaves and interesting things scattered around like precious artifacts. In the center was a flashlight pointed up at the blanket ceiling, creating a soft glow that made everything feel magical. "This is our safe place," Luna signed seriously. "When things are scary outside, we can come here, all of us together." "And nothing bad can get in," Ellie added, "because we're a team, and teams protect each other." Leo was staring at the space with wonder, his hands moving rapidly. "This is the best fort I've ever seen. Can we add some dinosaur guards for extra protection?" "Yes," both twins signed emphatically. For the next hour, they reinforced and expanded the fort, adding Leo's shoebox treasures to the collection, rearranging the layout to maximize space and comfort. Victoria contributed throw pillows from the couch and helped tape up more drawings. At some point, she'd stopped being the CEO who hired Noah and started being just Victoria, another person in the fort, another member of the team. Noah watched her sign to her daughters, watched the way they leaned into her now instead of pulling away, and saw the moment she realized it too. That something fundamental had shifted, that her children were looking at her again, really looking. "Mommy," Ellie signed. She'd taken to calling Victoria that more often now, the word less fraught than it had been. "Can we have fort time every day?" Victoria's eyes went bright with unshed tears, but she smiled. "Every single day," she signed back, "for as long as you want." "Forever then," Luna declared. "We want it forever." They emerged from the fort eventually because the real world still existed and had schedules to maintain. The twins had started attending a specialized preschool 3 mornings a week. Victoria's compromise between letting them heal and making sure they didn't fall too far behind academically. Today was one of those mornings. But as Noah helped them prepare, packing their small backpacks, making sure they had their lunch boxes, tying shoes that seemed impossible to keep tied, he noticed something different. They were talking, not just signing, but actually using their voices. Quiet still, barely above whispers, but words. "Do you think Miss Sarah will like my drawing?" Ellie asked out loud, holding up a picture she'd made of their fort. "She'll love it," Noah said, keeping his voice casual, even though his heart was racing. "It's beautiful." "Everything we make is beautiful," Luna said, matter-of-factly. "That's what Papa Noah says." She'd started calling him that 2 weeks ago, and Noah had neither discouraged it nor examined too closely why it made his throat tight every time. Victoria appeared in the doorway, dressed now in full CEO mode. Navy suit, heels, hair back in its severe style. The transformation was jarring. "Car's downstairs," she said. "I'll drop them at school on my way to the morning board meeting." "I can take them," Noah offered. "You don't have to—" "I want to," Victoria interrupted. "The board can wait 10 extra minutes." She crouched down to the twins' level, her expensive suit crinkling without care. "Ready for school, my loves?" Both girls nodded and went to hug her. Victoria wrapped her arms around them tightly, burying her face in their hair, and Noah saw her lips move in what might have been a prayer, or might have been thank you. When she stood, her makeup was slightly smudged, but her expression was fierce with love. "Leo," she signed to Noah's son, "you're okay here with your dad until pickup time?" Leo nodded. "We're going to build a dinosaur habitat for when the girls come back, so the dinosaur guards have a proper place to live." "That sounds perfect. Noah—" She turned to him. "Can we talk, quickly, before I go?" She led him out into the hallway while the 3 children debated the proper architectural requirements for dinosaur housing. Once they were alone, Victoria's CEO mask slipped, and Noah saw exhaustion underneath. "I have something to ask you," she said, "and feel free to say no. In fact, probably you should say no because it's insane and crosses about 16 professional boundaries." "You're not selling this well," Noah observed. She laughed, short and sharp. "Fair. Okay, here it is. I want you and Leo to move into my house." Noah blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "My house, it's massive. 8 bedrooms, more space than 3 people could ever use. You and Leo are here anyway from 8 o'clock a.m. until 6 p.m. most days. Then you go home to your apartment and get a few hours of sleep before starting the whole cycle again. You look exhausted, Noah. And Leo mentioned last week that he misses having dinner with you because you're always so tired." "Victoria, let me finish. The girls ask for you every morning before you arrive and cry when you leave at night. They want you there. Leo wants to be there. And honestly," her voice cracked slightly, "I want you there too. Not in a weird way," she added quickly. "In a, you've become part of this family and it feels wrong when you leave way." Noah ran his hand through his hair, trying to process. "That's not crossing a boundary. That's obliterating it." I know it's crazy, but nothing about this situation has been normal from the start. Why start now?" She was speaking faster now, the way she did when pitching ideas in meetings. He'd observed her on conference calls enough to recognize the pattern. "Separate wing of the house, complete privacy. You'd still get paid your salary. This isn't about money. It's about proximity, about making this work better for everyone, especially the kids. You don't even know if Leo and I are compatible with living in your space. We're loud sometimes. He practices his drums. There's a soundproof music room that hasn't been used in 2 years. Problem solved. We have completely different lifestyles. You're a billionaire CEO, and I'm a janitor who... A janitor who saved my daughter's lives, Victoria interrupted fiercely, who gave me my family back, who treats my children like they matter instead of like problems to solve. Do you think I care about lifestyles and compatibility when you've given me something money couldn't buy? Noah leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. This is a lot, Victoria. I know. Think about it. Talk to Leo. No pressure. She checked her watch. I have to go or the board will stage a mutiny. But Noah, she gripped his arm. Consider it, please. Because I think we're building something good here. Something that works. And I don't want to lose it just because we're following rules that don't actually apply to us. She swept back into the playroom, collected her daughters with kisses and reminders to listen to their teacher, and disappeared down the hallway in a click of expensive heels and the faint scent of perfume that probably cost more than Noah's monthly rent. Noah stood in the empty hallway for a long moment, trying to figure out what had just happened. Move into Victoria Rivers' house, live with a billionaire, raise 4 kids together under one roof like some kind of modern Brady Bunch situation except with more trauma and better real estate. It was insane. It was also tempting. He thought about his apartment with its leaky faucet and thin walls and the constant anxiety about making rent. He thought about Leo's face every night when they left the Rivers building, how reluctant he was to go, how he'd started asking, "Can't we stay just a little longer?" He thought about the twins crying when they left, and how Victoria always looked a little lost after they'd gone, like the house was too big and too quiet without them. He thought about Team Carter, and whether teams were stronger when they lived together or when they maintained boundaries. Leo poked his head out of the playroom. "Papa, you okay? You're standing in the hallway looking confused." Noah signed back. "I am confused. Victoria asked us something big, and I don't know what to think about it." "What did she ask?" "She asked if we want to move into her house, live there with her and the twins." Leo's eyes went wide. Then he signed slowly, carefully. "Like a family? All of us together?" "Sort of, kind of. It's complicated." "Do you want to?" Leo asked. Noah started to give some adult answer about considering all the factors and making responsible decisions. Then he stopped and just told the truth. "Yeah, buddy, part of me really wants to." "Then why is it complicated?" "Because I'm scared. What if it doesn't work? What if we move there and it falls apart, and then we've disrupted everything? What if the twins get too attached and something goes wrong?" Leo considered this seriously, his 7-year-old face thoughtful beyond his years. Then he signed, "But Papa, what if it does work? What if it's really good and we're all happy together? Isn't that scary in a good way?" Out of the mouths of babes, Noah thought. His son had somehow become wiser than him. "You're right," he signed. "You're absolutely right. Want to know something? You're the smartest kid I know." "I'm the only kid you know," Leo signed back with a grin. "That doesn't make it less true." They spent the rest of the morning building an elaborate dinosaur habitat, using blocks, cardboard boxes Leo found in the recycling, and an impressive amount of tape. By the time Victoria returned with the twins at 11:30, they'd created something that looked like a cross between Jurassic Park and an avant-garde art installation. The girls loved it immediately and dove into playing with Leo, their voices mixing with his silence in a symphony of childhood joy that filled the space. Victoria caught Noah's eye from across the room and raised her eyebrows in question. He knew what she was asking. He nodded, just a small nod. But it was enough. Her face transformed, relief and joy and something else Noah couldn't quite name, but that made his chest feel tight. That night, after dropping Leo off at Mrs. Chen's with an explanation that left her both concerned and supportive, Noah returned to his apartment and really looked at it. At the space that had been their refuge for the past year. It had served its purpose. It had kept them safe and dry and housed while they rebuilt their shattered lives. But it wasn't home anymore. Home had somehow become a playroom with a blanket fort, 3 kids laughing while they built dinosaur habitats, and a woman who'd started as his employer but had become something else entirely. He texted Victoria. Leo and I talked. We're in. But we should set some ground rules. Her response came immediately. Name them. I'll agree to anything. That's a dangerous promise. Try me. Noah smiled and typed, Okay. Rule 1. Leo and I pay rent. Not market rate because I'm not delusional, but something. This has to be equitable. Rule 2. You don't change how you parent your kids just because I'm there. And I don't change how I parent Leo. We're still separate families living together, not one blended unit. Not yet, anyway. Yet. I like that word. Rule 3. If it doesn't work, we can leave without guilt or recrimination. Clean exit, no hard feelings. Everyone survives the transition. A longer pause this time. Then, agreed. Though I don't think we'll need that rule. When can you move in? Noah looked around his small apartment, mentally cataloging what they actually needed to bring versus what could be donated or stored. Not much, really. They'd learned to live light after the accident, keeping only what mattered. 2 weeks. Need to give notice on the lease and pack. I'll send movers. Victoria. Noah, let me do this. Let me make this easy for you. You've made everything easy for me and my daughters for weeks. Return the favor. He couldn't argue with that logic. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to us. To me. Noah set down his phone and walked to his workbench where half-finished carvings waited. A bird for Ellie, a moon for Luna, a new dinosaur for Leo, and one more piece he'd been working on late at night when sleep wouldn't come. 2 adult figures and 3 children standing together, holding hands. He picked up the unfinished carving and studied it in the lamplight. He hadn't been sure why he was making it, hadn't wanted to examine the impulse too closely. Now he understood. He'd been carving the future. The thing they were all building together, whether they admitted it or not. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of logistics and emotional goodbyes. Mrs. Chen cried when Noah told her they were moving, then immediately invited herself over for Sunday dinners. His supervisor at the building was confused, but supportive when Noah transitioned to a remote consulting role. Victoria had apparently arranged it so he'd still have his maintenance job security while taking on the primary role of helping her daughters. Leo's teacher called it an incredible opportunity and promised to make the transition as smooth as possible for his schooling. Leo himself fluctuated between excitement and terror, sometimes within the same 5-minute span. What if they get tired of me? He signed to Noah one night while they packed his room. They won't, Noah assured him. But what if I do something wrong and mess everything up? Then we'll fix it together. That's what families do. Are we a family now? Leo asked, his hands moving slowly, carefully, like the answer mattered more than anything. Noah put down the box he was holding and pulled his son into a hug. Yeah, buddy. I think maybe we are. Moving day arrived with clear October skies and falling leaves that painted Chicago in autumn colors. Victoria's house, calling it a house, felt inadequate. It was practically an estate, sat in an exclusive neighborhood Noah had only ever driven through before. 3 stories of limestone and glass, surrounded by mature trees and a lawn that was definitely maintained by a professional service. The moving truck pulled up and Noah felt his anxiety spike. What were they doing? A janitor and his deaf son moving into a mansion with a billionaire and her traumatized twins. It was a setup for disaster. But then the front door burst open and the twins came running out, followed by Victoria, and all 3 were wearing matching Team Carter t-shirts that someone had clearly had custom made. "You're here!" Ellie shouted, her voice loud and clear and joyful. "We've been waiting forever." "It's been 2 weeks," Luna corrected, but she was grinning too. "We made signs for your rooms. Want to see?" Leo had already jumped out of the car and was being pulled toward the house by both twins, signing rapidly about dinosaurs and forts, and all the space they'd have to build things. Noah followed more slowly, carrying the box of precious items, his woodworking tools, Emily's photograph, Leo's baby book. Victoria waited for him at the door, her expression nervous. "Welcome home," she said softly. Home. The words settled over Noah like a blanket, warm and unfamiliar and right. "Show me around?" he asked. She led him through rooms that belonged in magazines, high ceilings and original artwork and furniture that was clearly designer. But underneath the wealth were signs of real life. The twins' artwork taped to the kitchen fridge, a pile of work files on the dining room table, children's books scattered across the living room couch. "Your wing is here," Victoria said, leading him up a grand staircase to the second floor. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, sitting area, completely private. The twins and I are on the opposite side of the house, so you'll have space. The rooms were beautiful. Hardwood floors and large windows, and more square footage than his entire apartment had contained. But what caught Noah's attention was the personal touches Victoria had added. In Leo's room, a drum set sat in the corner next to shelves already filled with books about space and dinosaurs. In Noah's room, someone had set up a woodworking bench by the window with natural light and a view of the garden. "You didn't have to do all this," Noah said, his throat tight. "I wanted to. I want you both to feel like this is your home, not just a place you're staying." From downstairs, they heard the kids laughing, all 3 of them, their voices and hands creating conversation that needed no translation. "Victoria," Noah started, not sure how to express what he was feeling. "This is scary," she supplied. "Overwhelming, possibly the worst decision we've ever made." "I was going to say important. This feels important." She moved closer, and Noah noticed how tired she still looked despite the smile on her face. Running a company while healing her children was taking its toll. "It is important to all of us. And Noah," she hesitated, then continued, "I know we started this as an employment arrangement, you helping with my daughters, but somewhere along the way it became something else, something more." "Yeah," Noah agreed quietly. "It did. I don't know what to call it yet. This thing we're building, but I know it matters, and I know I don't want to mess it up." "Then we won't," Noah said with more confidence than he felt. "We'll figure it out as we go, make mistakes and fix them. Keep the kids at the center of everything." "Team Carter style," Victoria said with a small smile. "Team Carter style," Noah agreed. They stood there in his new room, her house, their space, this impossible situation they'd created, and something passed between them. An acknowledgement, a promise. The beginning of something neither could name but both recognized. Downstairs, Leo called up, "Papa, come see what the girls and I built. It's important." Noah and Victoria headed down together to find the 3 children had constructed an elaborate pillow fort bridge connecting the 2 wings of the house. "See?" Ellie signed proudly. "Now we're connected, both sides of the family. Together." Luna nodded seriously. "Because families should be connected, even if they're different parts." Noah looked at Victoria and saw his own emotion reflected in her eyes. These kids, these brilliant, brave, healing kids, had figured out what they were building before the adults had. A family. Different parts, connected bridges, all learning to be together. That night, after the boxes were unpacked and the kids were finally asleep in their respective rooms, Noah stood at his window looking out at the garden below. Moonlight painted everything silver in shadows, and he thought about how far they'd all come in just a few weeks. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "You still awake?" "Yeah, too much change to sleep. Meet me in the kitchen. I have wine and leftover pizza. We should toast to terrible decisions." Noah smiled and headed downstairs to find Victoria already there, 2 glasses of wine poured, a box of pizza open on the marble counter. She'd changed into yoga pants and an old Northwestern sweatshirt, her hair down and face scrubbed clean. She looked younger this way, more real. "To Team Carter," she said, raising her glass. "May we survive whatever we've just started." "To Team Carter," Noah echoed, clinking his glass against hers. "And to bridges, both literal and metaphorical." They drank and ate cold pizza and talked about logistics, school schedules and therapy appointments, and who would cook what nights. But underneath the practical talk was something else. An awareness, a recognition that they'd crossed into territory neither had planned for. "Thank you," Victoria said eventually, "for taking this insane leap with me." "Thank you for asking," Noah replied, "for seeing us as something more than an employee and his kid." "You were never just an employee, Noah. From the moment you sat on that floor with my daughters and treated them like people instead of problems, you became something essential." Essential. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning neither was quite ready to examine. We should sleep, Victoria said finally. Tomorrow starts early. Leo's school run at 7:30, twins therapy at 9 o'clock. Team Carter never stops, Noah observed. No, Victoria agreed softly. I guess it doesn't. They said goodnight and went to their separate wings, bridges built but not yet fully crossed. But as Noah lay in his new bed in his new room in this house that was slowly becoming home, he thought about wooden carvings and pillow forts and 3 children who'd decided to be family before the adults had figured it out. And he thought maybe, just maybe, they were all going to be okay. More than okay. They were going to build something beautiful out of all their broken pieces. They just had to be patient enough to let it happen. The first real fight happened on a Tuesday morning in November, 6 weeks after Noah and Leo moved in, and it started the way most fights in blended families start, with something small that revealed something much bigger underneath. Noah came downstairs at 6:30 a.m. to find Victoria already in the kitchen, dressed in a sharp black suit, hair pulled back severely, typing furiously on her phone with one hand while attempting to make coffee with the other. She looked like she hadn't slept, which probably meant she'd been up late working again. Morning, Noah said, moving to take over the coffee machine before she could burn herself. You're up early. Board meeting at 8 o'clock. Major acquisition deal falling apart. I need to be downtown in an hour. She didn't look up from her phone, her fingers still flying across the screen. The twins have their developmental assessment today at 10 a.m. Can you take them? Of course, that's what I'm here for. And Leo has that field trip to the planetarium. Permission slip is on the counter, needs to be signed, and he needs lunch money. Got it. And someone from the preschool called yesterday about Ellie, something about her not participating in group activities. They want to schedule a conference call. Noah poured 2 cups of coffee, sliding one toward Victoria. She finally looked up, and he saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the tight set of her jaw. She was running on fumes and determination, neither of which was sustainable. Victoria, he said gently, when's the last time you slept a full night? I don't remember. Does it matter? She grabbed the coffee cup like a lifeline. I have 40 employees depending on this acquisition. If it falls through, we're looking at layoffs. Real people losing real jobs. So no, sleep isn't exactly a priority right now. Your daughters need you to be present, not exhausted. The words came out sharper than Noah intended. Victoria's head snapped up, her expression going from tired to defensive in an instant. Excuse me? My daughters have me every evening, every weekend. I've rearranged my entire life around them. And you're still trying to be CEO of a billion-dollar company at the same time. You can't do both at 100%. I'm not asking for permission about how to run my life, Noah. I'm asking you to take my daughters to their appointment because that's literally your job. The word job landed like a slap. Noah felt something cold settle in his chest. Right, my job. I forgot that's all this was. That's not what I meant, isn't it? Because it sounds like when things get complicated, you remind me that I'm staff, that I work for you. Victoria's coffee cup hit the marble counter harder than necessary. That's not fair. You know that's not what I meant. I'm stressed and overwhelmed, and you won't let anyone help you with the parts that matter. You let me handle the kids, but you won't let me handle you. The kitchen went silent except for the coffee machine's final gurgle. Victoria stared at him, her expression cycling through anger, hurt, and something else Noah couldn't identify. Handle me? Her voice was quiet now, dangerous. I don't need handling, Noah. I need... She stopped, swallowed hard. I need to go to work. She grabbed her briefcase and her phone and walked out of the kitchen without looking back. Noah heard the front door close a moment later, then the sound of her car starting in the driveway. He stood in the expensive kitchen of her expensive house and felt like an idiot. Papa? Noah turned to find Leo standing in the doorway in his pajamas, his expression worried. He signed, Are you and Victoria fighting? We had a disagreement, Noah signed back, trying to keep his hand steady. It's okay, adults do that sometimes. Mom and you used to disagree, Leo signed slowly, remembering. Before the accident, but you always fixed it. Yeah, buddy, we did. So you'll fix this too, with Victoria? Noah pulled Leo into a hug, breathing in the little boy's smell of him, shampoo and sleep and innocence. Yeah, I'll fix it. I promise. But as he made breakfast and got Leo ready for school and woke the twins for their assessment, Noah wasn't sure how to fix something when he didn't fully understand what was broken. Was Victoria right? Was he overstepping? He was living in her house, helping raise her children, but what was he actually to her? An employee? A friend? Something more that neither of them had the courage to name? The twins were quieter than usual at breakfast, picking at their pancakes. Children always knew when the adults were off balance, and Ellie and Luna had become particularly attuned to emotional undercurrents after 18 months of living in the aftermath of their father's death. Is Mommy okay? Ellie signed to Noah. She left without saying goodbye. She had an important meeting, Noah explained. She was in a hurry, but she loves you both very much. She's always in a hurry now, Luna said softly, speaking instead of signing. She says she's here, but her brain is always somewhere else. Out of the mouths of babes again. Noah crouched down between their chairs. Your mom is trying really hard to do everything perfectly. Sometimes adults do that. They think they have to be perfect all the time or they're failing, but nobody can be perfect. Are you mad at her? Ellie asked. Noah considered lying, then decided honesty was better. I'm frustrated, but frustrated isn't the same as mad. It means I care about her and I want to help, but I don't know how. You should tell her that, Luna said matter-of-factly. When Ellie and I are frustrated with each other, we talk about it. That's what you taught us. Noah smiled despite himself. You're absolutely right. That is what I taught you, and I should probably take my own advice. He got them to their developmental assessment on time, sat through the hour-long evaluation, where both girls demonstrated remarkable progress in communication and social-emotional regulation, and tried not to think about Victoria's expression when she'd called this his job. The developmental specialist, Dr. Martinez, was effusive in her praise. Mr. Carter, I have to tell you, in 20 years of doing these assessments, I've rarely seen this kind of turnaround. When I first met Eleanor and Luna 2 months ago, they were completely shut down. Today they're engaging, communicating, showing age-appropriate emotional responses. Whatever you're doing, it's working. It's not just me, Noah said. Their mother has been incredible. She's learning sign language, spending every evening with them, completely reorganizing her life, which is important, yes. But you're the constant. You're the one who created the safe space they needed to heal. Dr. Martinez looked at him seriously. I hope you understand how rare you are. Most people in your position would have given up or burned out by now. The fact that you're still here, still invested, it matters. Noah thanked her and left with the twins, but her words rattled around in his head. Still here. Still invested. Was that what Victoria thought was in question? Did she think he was going to leave? That afternoon, after picking up Leo from his field trip and getting all 3 kids settled with a movie, Noah finally checked his phone to find 17 missed calls and 32 texts. Most were from Victoria. The first few were apologetic. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. Can we talk when I get home? Then increasingly worried, Noah, please respond. I know you're mad, but I need to know you're okay. Then almost desperate. The assessment was at 10. It's 2 p.m. Are the girls okay? Is something wrong? Noah felt guilt wash over him. He'd been so caught up in his own hurt feelings that he hadn't thought about how his silence would affect her. He typed quickly. Everyone's fine. Assessment went great. Girls did amazing. We're home. Sorry I didn't respond sooner. 3 dots appeared immediately, then, can we talk? Really talk? I'll leave work now. Your board meeting. Screw the board meeting. This is more important. Noah stared at his phone for a long moment, then replied, Okay, come home. She arrived 45 minutes later, still in her suit but somehow looking more disheveled than she had that morning. Her hair was falling out of its ponytail, her makeup smudged, and she was carrying her heels in one hand. The kids were still engrossed in their movie, so Noah met Victoria in the kitchen, the scene of their earlier crime. I'm sorry, she said immediately. What I said this morning about your job, that was cruel and wrong and the opposite of what I actually feel. What do you actually feel? Noah asked. Victoria set down her heels and her briefcase and leaned against the counter, suddenly looking small despite the power suit and the mansion around them. Terrified. I feel terrified every single day that I'm going to mess this up, that I'm going to fail my daughters again, that you're going to realize this situation is completely insane and leave, that I'm asking too much of you, that I'm not doing enough myself, that I'm a terrible mother and a terrible CEO and a terrible... Her voice cracked. Whatever we are to each other. Noah moved closer, giving her space to finish. So when you called me out this morning, when you said I won't let you help with the parts that matter, you were right. Because if I let you see how close I am to falling apart, if I admit that I can't do this alone, then I have to face how much I need you. And needing people, she looked away. Needing people has never worked out well for me. Victoria. My parents died when I was 19, car accident. I had to raise myself and run their company and be an adult before I knew how. Then I met Elias, and for the first time I let myself need someone. Really need them. And then he died too, and I was alone again with 2 babies who needed me to be strong. So I learned, again, that needing people is dangerous, that being self-sufficient is survival. Noah understood then. Really understood. She wasn't just a workaholic CEO. She was a woman who'd learned over and over that the people she needed disappeared. I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. You say that now. I'm not going anywhere. Noah closed the distance between them, his calloused hands taking hers gently. Victoria, I moved into your house. I integrated our kids. I carved my life around yours. Do you really think I did all that casually, that I'd walk away when things got hard? People have before. I'm not people. I'm Noah. The guy who sat on the floor with your daughters and saw them clearly. The same guy who sees you clearly right now. And what I see is a woman who's been strong for so long she's forgotten it's okay to be tired. Victoria's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and then she was crying, really crying, for the first time since Noah had known her. Not the elegant tears she occasionally shed over her daughter's progress, but the ugly, gasping tears of someone who'd been holding everything inside for too long. Noah pulled her into his arms and let her cry against his shoulder, her expensive suit wrinkling against his flannel shirt, her perfectly styled hair falling completely loose. He didn't try to fix it, or stop it, or make it better. He just held her and let her break apart in a safe space. When the storm finally passed, Victoria pulled back slightly, wiping at her face with her hands. I'm a mess, she said. You're human, Noah corrected. There's a difference. She laughed, watery and real. I got mascara all over your shirt. I have other shirts. Noah, she looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. I need to tell you something, and it's terrifying because I don't know how you'll react and I don't want to ruin what we have, but I also can't keep pretending. Noah's heart started beating faster. Okay. This stopped being just about the kids weeks ago. For me, at least. And I know that's complicated because you work for me and you live in my house and there are 4 children involved and about 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea. Victoria, Noah interrupted gently. I carved a wooden figure of all of us together. You, me, and the 3 kids. I've been working on it at night when everyone's asleep. It sits on my workbench half finished because I've been too scared to complete it, too scared to admit what it means. She stared at him. What does it mean? It means this stopped being just about the kids for me too. It means when I think about the future, you're in it. Not as my employer, not as Leo's landlord, as... He hesitated, then pushed forward. As someone essential. As someone I'm falling for, even though it's complicated and messy and potentially disastrous. The kitchen went silent again, but this time the silence felt different, charged, full of possibility instead of anger. We're both disasters, Victoria said finally, a smile tugging at her lips despite the tears still on her cheeks. The most functional disasters I know, Noah agreed. Our kids are watching a movie in the next room. Yep. This is probably the worst possible timing. Probably. And we have no idea if this will work. Not a clue. So what do we do? Victoria asked. Noah thought about Emily, about the accident, about the year of grief and survival that had taught him life was short and second chances were rare, and sometimes you had to be brave enough to reach for happiness even when it scared you. We try, he said simply. We take it slow and keep the kids at the center and figure it out as we go. Same way we've been doing everything else. Team Carter style, Victoria said, echoing their earlier conversation. Team Carter style, Noah confirmed. And then, because some moments demanded action instead of words, he leaned down and kissed her, soft and careful and full of promise. Victoria's hands came up to grip his shirt, the one she'd already ruined with mascara, and she kissed him back with an intensity that spoke of months of unacknowledged feelings finally finding expression. When they broke apart, both slightly breathless, Noah rested his forehead against hers. So we're doing this? We're doing this, Victoria confirmed, whatever this is. Papa? They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents to find Leo standing in the doorway, his expression delighted. He signed rapidly. Were you kissing Victoria? Are you boyfriend and girlfriend now? Does this mean the twins are my sisters for real? Noah felt his face heat up. Leo, buddy, it's complicated. It looks simple to me, Leo signed with a grin. You like her. She likes you. That's how it works in movies. Real life is more complicated than movies, Noah signed back. Why? Leo challenged. You're both sad when you're apart. You're both happy when you're together. You take care of each other's kids. That's what families do. So why make it complicated? Victoria laughed, a real laugh this time, not the corporate one she used in meetings. She signed to Leo with her still imperfect hand shapes. Your dad is very wise. You must learn from him. He says I'm the wise one, Leo signed back proudly. I told him weeks ago that you two liked each other. Adults are slow about feelings. We really are, Victoria agreed, then looked at Noah. Are you okay with him knowing? With the kids knowing? The twins are going to figure it out in about 30 seconds anyway, Noah said. And honestly, maybe Leo's right. Maybe we're making it more complicated than it needs to be. As if summoned by the conversation, Ellie and Luna appeared in the doorway, their movie apparently forgotten. Why is everyone in the kitchen? Ellie signed. And why does Mommy's face look funny? Luna added. Victoria crouched down to their level, not bothering to hide her smudged makeup or red eyes. My face looks funny because I was crying, but they were good tears. Happy tears. Because Noah and I had a big talk about feelings. What kind of feelings? Ellie asked cautiously. Noah joined Victoria, kneeling beside her so they were both at the children's eye level. The kind of feelings that mean we like spending time together, that we care about each other, that we want to keep being a team, but maybe in a bigger way. The twins looked at each other, then at Leo, then back at their mother and Noah. Luna spoke first. Does this mean Papa Noah and Leo are going to stay forever, not just until we're fixed? You're not broken, Noah said firmly, signing as he spoke so all three kids could follow. You never were broken. You were hurting, and that's different. But yes, Leo and I are staying forever, if that's okay with you. And if it's okay, Victoria added, her voice shaking slightly, maybe Noah and I can be more than just teammates. Maybe we can be... She glanced at Noah for support. People who love each other, Noah finished, and who love all three of you. For a moment, the children were silent, processing. Then Ellie's face broke into a grin, and she signed enthusiastically. So we're a real family now? All of us? We've been a real family for a while now, Victoria said. We're just making it official. Does this mean we can call Noah Dad? Luna asked. Because we've been wanting to, but we thought it might make Mommy sad. Victoria's eyes filled with tears again. Definitely the happy kind this time. She looked at Noah, and he saw the question in her expression. This was big. This was the twins essentially asking to replace their father, or at least to expand their definition of father to include Noah. Your dad, your first dad, Elias, he's always going to be your dad, Noah said carefully. Nothing changes that. He loved you, and he'll always be part of your story. But if you want to also call me Dad, or Papa, or whatever feels right, his throat went tight. I would be honored. Ellie threw herself at Noah, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Luna followed immediately, and suddenly Noah was holding two 4-year-olds who were crying happy tears into his shoulders while signing thank you over and over. Leo joined the hug without being asked, and then Victoria wrapped her arms around all of them, and they were all crying and laughing and tangled together in the middle of the kitchen floor. This is disgusting, Leo signed with a huge grin. So many emotions. Can we have ice cream now? Everyone laughed, the tension breaking into something lighter. Victoria stood and wiped her eyes. Yes, ice cream for dinner, because this is a special occasion and normal rules don't apply. Ice cream for dinner? The twins shouted in unison, their voices clear and strong, nothing like the silent, scared children Noah had met 2 months ago. As they all moved to the freezer, arguing good-naturedly about flavors and toppings, Noah caught Victoria's eye across the kitchen. She mouthed, "Thank you," and he shook his head. No thanks necessary. This was what he'd signed up for when he'd sat on that daycare floor. He just hadn't known it yet. That night, after the kids were finally in bed, hyped up on sugar and excitement and talking about their real family, until Victoria had to implement actual bedtime rules, Noah and Victoria sat together on the back porch, wrapped in blankets against the November chill. "So we did it," Victoria said quietly. "We told the kids. We admitted how we feel. We're actually doing this." "Having second thoughts?" Noah asked. "Terrified thoughts," she corrected. "But not second thoughts. You?" "Same." He pulled her closer, and she fit against his side like she'd been designed to be there. "For the record, I didn't plan this. Falling for you. I came here to help your daughters, and somehow we all saved each other," Victoria finished. "That's what happened, Noah. You saved my daughters. They saved Leo by giving him siblings who understood him. And you and I—" She paused, looking up at the stars visible above Chicago's light pollution. "We saved each other by being brave enough to admit we couldn't do this alone." "Poetic," Noah observed. "I have a literature degree from Northwestern. Sometimes I use it." "I barely graduated high school," Noah said. "I build things with my hands. I'm not sophisticated or educated or—" "Noah!" Victoria turned to face him fully. "I've dated senators and CEOs and men who went to Harvard and Yale. You want to know what they all had in common? They saw me as a trophy, as a network connection, as a business opportunity. You're the only man who's ever looked at me and seen a tired mother who needed help, who saw past the money and the company and the power to the person underneath. That's because the person underneath is the part that matters," Noah said simply. "See? That's what I mean. You say things like that and mean them. You're genuine in a way most people I've met aren't." She took his hand, tracing the calluses on his palm. "These hands carved hope for my daughters when nothing else could reach them. These hands built bridges between our families. These hands—" She brought his palm to her cheek. "These hands make me feel safe for the first time since Elias died." Noah leaned down and kissed her again, slower this time, without the urgency of their kitchen kiss, but with something deeper, something that tasted like commitment and trust and the promise of figuring things out together. When they finally went inside, the house was quiet except for the normal sounds of children sleeping and old buildings settling. They walked upstairs together, stopping at the hallway that divided their two wings. "This feels like a teenage movie," Victoria said. The awkward, "do we sleep in the same room now" moment. "We probably shouldn't," Noah said reluctantly. "Not yet. Not with the kids still processing everything." "I agree, but I hate agreeing." She kissed him one more time, quick and sweet. "Good night, Noah Carter. Thank you for fighting with me this morning, for pushing me to be honest." "Anytime." "Well, not anytime. Let's try to keep the fighting to a minimum." "Deal. See you in the morning." "See you in the morning, Victoria Rivers." They separated to their respective wings, but as Noah got ready for bed, he felt lighter than he had in over a year. Since before the accident, since before losing Emily. For the first time, the future looked like something to move toward instead of something to survive. He stopped by Leo's room and found his son already asleep, clutching a stuffed dinosaur in one hand and smiling in his sleep. Noah kissed his forehead gently, signing, "I love you," even though Leo couldn't see it. Then he went to his workbench and picked up the unfinished carving, the family of 5 holding hands. He studied it in the lamplight, then picked up his tools and started working. No more fear. No more leaving it incomplete. It was time to finish what they'd started. Time to carve the future they were all brave enough to reach for. The wood shavings fell like snow, and Noah worked late into the night, his hands steady and sure, building something beautiful out of all their broken pieces. The carved family sat finished on Noah's workbench when spring arrived in Chicago, bringing with it the kind of renewal that felt less like metaphor and more like promise. 6 months had passed since that November evening when everything had shifted, and the house that had once felt too big for 3 people now felt exactly right for 5. Noah woke on a Saturday morning in late April to find Leo already awake and signing frantically from the doorway of his bedroom. Papa, wake up! Today's the day! Victoria said we could ask today." Noah rubbed sleep from his eyes and signed back slowly. "Ask what today?" The big important thing we've been planning." Leo bounced on his toes, his whole 7-year-old body vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Remember? You said when spring came and the flowers bloomed, we could do it." Memory clicked into place and Noah sat up fully, his heart rate picking up. Right, the thing. The absolutely terrifying, potentially life-changing thing they'd been discussing for weeks. "You sure you're ready?" Noah signed. "Once we ask, we can't take it back." "I'm sure," Leo signed emphatically. "Are you?" Noah thought about the past 6 months, the careful dance of blending their family, the late-night conversations with Victoria about discipline and boundaries and how to parent together without losing themselves. He thought about the twins calling him Papa Noah, and Leo calling Victoria V with such casual affection it made Noah's chest ache. He thought about family dinners and homework battles and bedtime stories told in 2 languages, English and ASL flowing together until they became one vocabulary of love. He thought about Victoria and how loving her had become as natural as breathing. "Yeah," he signed back to Leo. "I'm ready." They found Victoria in the kitchen making pancakes, still in her pajamas, even though it was nearly 9 a.m., a minor miracle for a woman who used to wake at 5 a.m. every day for work. She'd started delegating more at Rivers Global, trusting her team to handle things she'd once thought only she could manage. The board had grumbled initially, but profits were up and employee satisfaction was higher than ever. Turned out a CEO who actually slept and took weekends off made better decisions. "Good morning, my favorite people," Victoria signed and spoke simultaneously, a habit she'd developed so all the kids could follow conversations equally. "Who wants chocolate chips in their pancakes?" "Me," came the chorus from the twins, who were already seated at the kitchen table working on a complex drawing of what appeared to be a castle made entirely of dinosaurs. Leo climbed onto his usual chair and signed to his father. "Now? Should we ask now?" "Ask what?" Victoria caught the exchange, her spatula pausing mid-flip. Noah met her eyes across the kitchen, and something in his expression must have telegraphed the seriousness of the moment, because Victoria set down the spatula entirely and came around the counter. "What's going on?" she asked, looking between Noah and Leo with curiosity mixed with a hint of concern. Leo took a deep breath, then signed carefully, making sure both Victoria and his sisters could see. "We want to ask you something important. All 3 of us, me and Papa and Leo's idea, but also Papa's idea." He paused, organizing his thoughts the way his therapist had taught him. "We've been a family for a long time now, since before we even knew we were a family. And Papa says that sometimes when you love people, you make it official, legal, so nobody can ever say it's not real." Victoria's hand went to her mouth, her eyes already filling. She looked at Noah. Is he asking what I think he's asking?" Noah stepped forward, taking her hand. "Victoria, these past 6 months have been the best of my life. You've given Leo a home and siblings and a mother figure he needed desperately. You've taught me that loving again doesn't mean betraying the past. It means honoring it by choosing to keep living. And I want to keep living. With you. Officially." He dropped to one knee right there in the kitchen, still in his pajamas, with pancakes burning on the stove and 3 children watching with bated breath. "Marry me," he said simply. "Not because it makes sense financially or logistically or any of the practical reasons. Marry me because I love you, because I want to spend the rest of my life carving wooden birds for our daughters and teaching our son that love can be quiet and still be powerful. Because you're my best friend and my partner and the person who made me believe in second chances." He pulled out a small wooden box from his pocket. He'd been carrying it for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Inside was a ring he'd designed himself and had made by a jeweler downtown, A simple gold band with 5 small stones representing each of them, intertwined in a pattern that looked like holding hands. Victoria was crying now, both hands over her mouth, unable to speak. The twins had abandoned their drawing and were watching with wide eyes. "But wait," Leo signed urgently. "There's more. We also want to know." He looked at his sisters for support, and they nodded encouragingly. "We want to know if you'll adopt me, legally, so I can be your son for real, and so Ellie and Luna are my real sisters, not just friend sisters." "And," Ellie jumped in, signing rapidly, "we want Papa Noah to adopt us too, so we have 2 dads, our first dad in heaven and our Papa Dad here." "We already asked Daddy," Luna added softly, pointing upward. "In our prayers. We think he said yes because he wants us to be happy, and Papa Noah makes us happy." The kitchen went completely silent except for the sound of Victoria trying to breathe through her tears. She looked at Noah, then at Leo, then at the twins, then back at Noah. You're all... She couldn't form complete sentences. She knelt down so she was at the children's level, gathering all 3 of them into her arms. "Yes, yes to everything. Yes, I'll marry you, Noah. Yes, I'll adopt Leo. Yes, we'll make this official and legal and forever." Leo whooped and the twins squealed, and suddenly everyone was hugging and crying and laughing all at once. Noah slipped the ring onto Victoria's finger and kissed her properly, while the kids made exaggerated gagging sounds that dissolved into giggles. "We're getting married," Ellie signed ecstatically. "We're going to have a wedding." "Can I wear a suit?" Leo asked. "A real one? With a tie?" "Can we have cake?" Luna wanted to know. "Really big cake?" Victoria laughed through her tears. "Yes to suits and cake and whatever else you want. This is a family decision, so we plan it together." "Team Carter style," all 3 children chorused, signing the special symbol Leo had invented months ago. Noah rescued the burning pancakes while Victoria called her assistant to clear her schedule for the day. They were going to celebrate properly. Within an hour, they'd piled into Victoria's SUV and headed to their favorite spot, the Morton Arboretum, where paths wound through gardens and children could run free without judgment or constraint. They walked together through the spring gardens, the kids running ahead to examine interesting flowers and chase butterflies, while Noah and Victoria followed hand in hand. "I can't believe you had Leo in on the proposal," Victoria said, bumping her shoulder against his. "That was playing dirty." "It was his idea, actually," Noah admitted. "He came to me a month ago and said he wanted me to marry you because you make our family make sense." His words, "make sense." "He's the smartest 7-year-old I know." "Don't tell him that. His ego's already insufferable." Victoria stopped walking and turned to face Noah fully, her expression serious despite the joy of the morning. "I need you to know something. When Elias died, I thought that was it for me. One great love in a lifetime, and mine was over. I wasn't looking for this. For you. For any of it." "I know," Noah said softly. "But you changed everything. You saw my broken daughters and didn't run. You saw my mess of a life and helped me organize it. You saw me, really saw me, and decided I was worth staying for." She touched his face gently. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm not questioning it anymore. I'm just grateful. You gave me and Leo a home when we were still learning how to exist without Emily. You trusted me with your most precious things, your daughters, your heart. We saved each other, Victoria. That's how this works." They kissed there on the garden path, with spring blooming around them and their children's laughter echoing through the trees, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The kids ran back then, Leo signing urgently. "There's a playground. Can we go? Please." "Go," Victoria said. "We'll catch up." She and Noah followed more slowly, and Victoria said quietly, "We need to talk about the logistics, adoption paperwork, legal stuff, and the wedding. Do you want something big? Small? I can arrange whatever you—" "Victoria," Noah interrupted gently. "Stop CEOing this. Let's just figure it out together. No pressure, no timeline, just us and the kids and whatever feels right." She took a deep breath and visibly relaxed. "You're right. I'm doing it again, aren't I? Trying to control everything." "You're doing what you do best, planning and organizing. But maybe this time we wing it a little bit. See what happens." "Winging it terrifies me." "I know. That's why I'm here, to remind you that some of the best things in life aren't planned. They reached the playground and watched their children play together. Leo helping Luna across the monkey bars, Ellie showing them both how to pump their legs on the swings. 3 kids who'd found each other in grief and chosen to become siblings. I want to do it soon, Victoria said suddenly. The wedding, not a big production, just us and the kids and maybe a few close friends. Something simple. How soon? Next month? Is that crazy? Too fast? Noah thought about it. We've been living as a family for 8 months. We've been raising kids together, sharing a home, building a life. The wedding is just making it official. So no, not too fast. Next month sounds perfect. Victoria pulled out her phone. Old habits died hard, and started scrolling through her calendar. Memorial Day weekend. The gardens at the Botanic Garden will be blooming. We could have it outside, small ceremony, just family. And she stopped herself. Sorry, I'm CEOing again. No, keep going. I like watching your brain work. She smiled and kept planning out loud while Noah listened, adding input occasionally, but mostly just enjoying seeing her excited instead of stressed. This was who Victoria became when she allowed herself to be happy, energetic and passionate and full of ideas that made life an adventure instead of an obligation. They spent the whole day at the Arboretum, then went for dinner at the twins' favorite restaurant, a pizza place where the staff knew them by name now and always had crayons ready. As they ate, Leo suddenly signed to the table. I have something I want to say. Everyone stopped and gave him their attention. Leo looked nervous but determined, his hands moving carefully. When Mom died and I lost my hearing, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd always be the sad deaf kid that everybody felt sorry for. But then Papa Noah learned to sign and we became a team. And then we met Ellie and Luna and Victoria, and we became a bigger team. And now, he paused, gathering courage. Now I'm not the sad deaf kid anymore. I'm just Leo, who happens to be deaf, and who has the best family in the world. Victoria was crying again. She cried a lot these days, but they were always happy tears. Leo, sweetheart, that's beautiful. I'm not finished, Leo signed. I also want to say thank you to all of you for being my family, for learning my language, for making me feel normal. You are normal, Ellie signed seriously. Normal is boring. You're awesome. Same thing, Luna added, nodding sagely. Everyone laughed, and the moment passed into the easy rhythm of family dinner. Kids arguing over pizza toppings, parents mediating disputes, the comfortable chaos of people who belong together. That night, after the kids were finally asleep, Noah and Victoria sat in the living room with legal documents spread across the coffee table, adoption paperwork, marriage license applications, medical guardianship forms, all the official documents that would transform their makeshift family into something legally binding. This is terrifying, Victoria said, staring at the papers. Signing these means we're really doing this. Cold feet? Noah asked. Frozen feet. Hypothermic feet. She looked at him. But only because I'm scared of screwing it up, not because I don't want it. Victoria, you need to hear something, and you need to believe it. Noah took her hands, making her look at him. You're not going to screw this up. We might make mistakes. We definitely will make mistakes. But we'll make them together, and we'll fix them together. That's what partnership means. When did you become so wise? When I had to rebuild my entire life from scratch. Turns out trauma either destroys you or teaches you what actually matters. I got lucky and learned something. They signed the papers together, making it official, and then Victoria said quietly, I want to tell you something about Elias, about our marriage. Noah waited, giving her space to continue. Everyone thought we were perfect together, young, successful, beautiful children. But the truth is, we were struggling. He wanted me to quit work and be a full-time mother. I wanted him to understand that Rivers Global was my legacy, my purpose. We fought about it constantly. The day he died, her voice broke. We'd had a huge fight that morning about me missing another one of the twins' events because of work. He took the helicopter angry, and then he died angry. And I've been carrying that guilt ever since. Victoria, let me finish. I've spent 18 months thinking I killed my marriage, that I failed as a wife and mother. That my daughters shut down because they knew I was a disaster. And then you came along and you didn't try to fix me or change me or make me someone different. You just accepted me, workaholic tendencies and control issues and all. And that acceptance, it saved me. Noah pulled her close. You didn't kill your marriage. You were two people trying to figure out how to be partners and parents and yourselves all at once. That's not failure, that's being human. How are you so understanding? Because Emily and I weren't perfect either. We fought about money and my work hours and how to handle Leo's diagnosis. The day of the accident, she'd been annoyed with me because I'd forgotten to pick up milk. Such a stupid thing. But I spent months thinking, what if she died being mad at me? Grief makes you catastrophize everything. They sat in silence for a moment. Two people who'd loved before and lost and learned that love wasn't perfect. It was just worth fighting for. We're going to be better this time, Victoria said finally. Both of us. Because we've learned from our mistakes. We're going to be different, Noah corrected. Not necessarily better or worse, just more honest about who we are and what we need. I like that. Victoria looked at the signed papers on the table, at the ring on her finger, at the man beside her. I really like that. The next month passed in a blur of planning and legal appointments and kids' end-of-year school events. Noah officially adopted the twins on a Tuesday afternoon in a courthouse downtown with both girls wearing matching dresses they'd picked out themselves and holding his hands so tightly his fingers went numb. The judge smiled at them and said, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never seen children more certain about their choice. Congratulations on your expanded family. Victoria adopted Leo 2 days later in the same courthouse, and Leo cried, actually cried, which he rarely did anymore, when the judge declared him legally Victoria's son. I have a mom again, he signed to Noah afterward, his hands shaking with emotion. A real mom who chose me. She's lucky to have you, Noah signed back. We all are. Memorial Day weekend arrived with perfect weather, sunny and 75 degrees, the kind of Chicago day that made you forget the brutal winters and remember why you loved the city. They'd kept the wedding party small. Mrs. Chen as Leo's guest of honor, a few of Victoria's board members who'd become friends, Patricia from the daycare who'd watched their story unfold from the beginning, and Dr. Martinez, the developmental specialist who'd charted the twins' remarkable recovery. The ceremony took place in a small garden at the Chicago Botanic Garden, under a canopy of flowering trees that scattered petals like confetti. Victoria wore a simple cream dress and flowers in her hair. Noah wore a suit Leo had helped him pick out, charcoal gray with a blue tie because Leo insisted blue was lucky. The kids stood with them during the ceremony. Leo is Noah's best man, the twins as Victoria's attendants, all three of them taking their roles with adorable seriousness. The officiant was a family friend of Victoria's who'd known Elias, and she began the ceremony with unexpected words. Before we start, I want to acknowledge someone who's not here today, but who should be. Elias Rivers loved his daughters with everything he had, and I truly believe that he would be proud of what Victoria and Noah have built, not as a replacement for what was lost, but as proof that love can grow even in grief, that families can be reborn, that second chapters can be just as beautiful as first ones. Victoria was crying already, and Noah squeezed her hand. The vows they'd written were simple. Noah went first. Victoria, you taught me that loving again doesn't diminish what I had before. You showed me that I could honor Emily's memory while still choosing joy with you. You gave my son a mother and gave me a partner and gave us both a family we didn't know we needed. I promised to show up every day, to be patient when you're being a workaholic, to remind you that you don't have to be perfect, and to keep carving wooden birds and hearts and hope for as long as we both live. Victoria's hands shook as she read her vows. Noah, you walked into my life during the darkest period I've ever known. You saw my daughters when they were at their most unreachable and you reached them anyway. You saw me when I was falling apart and you helped me piece myself back together. You taught me that strength isn't about never needing help. It's about being brave enough to accept it. I promise to trust you, to let you in even when it's scary, to build this life together instead of trying to control every outcome, and to love you and Leo with everything I have. They exchanged rings, Noah's matching Victoria's with the 5 interconnected stones. Then the officiant said, by the power vested in me by the state of Illinois, and more importantly, by the love evident in this garden, I pronounce you married. You may kiss your bride." Noah cupped Victoria's face in his hands and kissed her, while their children cheered and the small group of guests applauded, and flower petals drifted down around them like blessing. "Ladies and gentlemen," the officiant announced with a smile, "I present to you the Carter Rivers family." The reception was casual. Grilled food and a simple cake and children running through the gardens while adults talked and laughed and celebrated this strange, beautiful family that had formed from grief and patience and the willingness to try. At one point, Mrs. Chen pulled Noah aside, tears streaming down her weathered face. "I'm so proud of you," she said, sighing as she spoke. "When you and Leo moved into that apartment a year ago, you both looked like ghosts. Now look at you, alive again." "Thank you for not giving up on us," Noah said, hugging her tightly, "for watching Leo and believing we'd figure it out. I never doubted you, not once." As the sun set and the party wound down, Noah found Victoria standing alone near the edge of the garden, looking out over the pond where ducks glided peacefully. "Hey, Mrs. Carter Rivers," he said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "What you thinking about?" "How impossible this would have seemed 6 months ago," she said, leaning back against him. "If someone had told me then that I'd be married to my daughter's janitor, that my children would be laughing and thriving, that I'd be happy, I wouldn't have believed them." "I prefer former janitor, current husband," Noah teased. She turned in his arms to face him. "You're so much more than that. You're the person who saved my family, who built this—" She gestured at their children playing nearby. "Out of nothing but patience and love." "We built it," Noah corrected. "All of us together." Leo ran over then, signing urgently, "Picture time! The photographer says we need family pictures before the light is gone." They gathered together, Victoria and Noah in the center, Leo between them, the twins on either side, and posed for what felt like 100 photos. Formal ones and silly ones and candid ones that caught them laughing or signing or just existing together. The photographer's favorite, the one that would eventually hang above their fireplace, showed all 5 of them in profile. Victoria and Noah looking at each other while the 3 children looked up at both of them. In the photo, Leo's hands were mid-sign, the twins were holding flowers, and the late-day sun illuminated them all with golden light. It looked like hope made visible. That night, after everyone had gone home and the kids were finally asleep in their rooms, Leo in his space with the drums and dinosaur collection, the twins in their shared room with its mural of moons and birds that Noah had painted last month. Victoria and Noah sat on their back porch, married now, legally bound, their families officially merged. "We did it," Victoria said softly. "Actually did it." "Having regrets?" Noah asked. "Not a single one. You?" "Only that it took us 6 months to get here instead of doing it sooner." Victoria laughed and leaned her head on his shoulder. "So what happens now? The happily ever after part?" "I don't think there's an ever after," Noah said thoughtfully. "I think there's just the next day, and the day after that, and all the days we choose to keep showing up for each other." "That's very philosophical." "I have my moments." He pulled her closer. "But here's what I know. Tomorrow, Leo has a dentist appointment at 9 o'clock. The twins have their preschool graduation next week. You have that board meeting about the merger. I need to finish the bookshelf I'm building for the playroom. Life keeps happening, wedding or no wedding." "And that's enough?" Victoria asked. "The ordinary, everyday stuff?" "That's everything," Noah said firmly. "The ordinary stuff is where real life happens, where love gets proven. Not in grand gestures, but in showing up for dentist appointments and building bookshelves and making sure 3 kids feel safe and seen every single day." They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies begin to dance across the yard. Somewhere inside, one of the kids called out in their sleep, probably Leo having one of his adventure dreams. Victoria started to get up, but Noah squeezed her hand. "I'll go," he said. "You stay here. Rest." He checked on Leo first, just a dream, the boy settling back into sleep almost immediately when Noah tucked his blanket tighter and kissed his forehead. Then he crossed the hall to the twins' room, where both girls were sleeping peacefully, clutching the wooden carvings Noah had made them months ago. The bird for Ellie, the moon for Luna. On impulse, Noah went to his workbench and retrieved the finished family carving, the five of them holding hands, finally complete. He carried it downstairs and placed it on the fireplace mantel in the living room, right in the center where everyone could see it. Victoria had come inside and was standing in the doorway watching him. "It's beautiful," she said. "When did you finish it?" "The night we told the kids we were getting married. Felt like the right time to complete it." She came closer to study the carving, tracing the wooden figures with one finger. "You captured us perfectly. Look, you even got Leo's dinosaur shirt and the twins' matching hair ribbons." "Details matter," Noah said. "They really do." Victoria wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. "Thank you for this. For all of it. For being patient enough to carve our family into existence." "That's what love is sometimes," Noah said. "Patient carving. Taking something rough and shaping it carefully until it becomes what it was always meant to be." They stood there together looking at the carving, their family rendered in wood, permanent and real. Outside, the spring night was full of possibility. Inside, 3 children slept safely, dreaming their separate dreams. And in that moment, in that house that had once been too big and was now exactly right, Noah realized something profound. Healing wasn't linear. It wasn't about fixing what was broken and moving on unchanged. It was about taking all the shattered pieces, his grief, Victoria's guilt, Leo's deafness, the twins' trauma, and building something new. Something that honored the pain while refusing to be defined by it. They'd lost people they loved. That would always be true. Emily would always be Leo's mother. Elias would always be the twins' first father. But love wasn't a finite resource that ran out when people died. It was infinite, capable of expanding to include new people without diminishing what came before. "Come to bed," Victoria said softly, taking his hand. "It's been a long, wonderful day." They climbed the stairs together, past Leo's room with its soft breathing, past the twins' room with its nightlight glow, to their own room at the end of the hall. Their room now, not just Victoria's or just Noah's, but theirs. As they got ready for bed, Noah caught sight of Victoria's reflection in the mirror, his wife now, wearing one of his old t-shirts, her hair down, her face clean of makeup. She looked nothing like the severe CEO he'd first met, and everything like home. "What?" she asked, catching him staring. "Just thinking about how much has changed, how different everything is now." "Better different?" she asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "Best different," Noah confirmed. They climbed into bed together, and Victoria curled into his side, her head on his chest, their breathing synchronizing. This was what happily ever after actually looked like, Noah thought. Not perfect and polished, but real. Complicated. Full of ordinary moments that added up to extraordinary love. "Noah?" Victoria's voice was sleepy. "I love you. I love you too. And thank you for everything. For saving my daughters, for giving Leo sisters, for being brave enough to build this with me. Thank you for saying yes to all of it. The proposal, the adoption, the insane leap of faith this whole thing required. Best sleep I ever took," Victoria murmured, already drifting off. Noah stayed awake a little longer, listening to his wife breathe, thinking about his son sleeping down the hall, about the twin daughters who now called him Papa, about the family they'd carved from grief and patience, and the willingness to see each other clearly. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed midnight. A new day beginning. Another chance to show up, to be present, to love imperfectly but persistently. Noah thought about the ghost girls who'd stopped being ghosts, about a deaf boy who'd learned to speak with his hands and his heart, about a billionaire who'd learned that control was less important than connection, about a janitor who'd learned that second chances were real if you were brave enough to reach for them. He thought about wooden carvings and blanket forts and all the small, patient acts of love that had built this family piece by careful piece. And he realized that the story didn't end here. It never really ended. It just kept going, day after ordinary day, moment after precious moment, each one an opportunity to choose love again. Outside, the Chicago night was quiet except for distant traffic and wind through trees. Inside, 5 people slept under one roof, connected not just by legal documents, but by something stronger, the choice to stay, to try, to believe that broken things could become beautiful if you were patient enough to do the work. Noah closed his eyes and let sleep take him. His last conscious thought, a simple one. This is what home feels like. And in the morning, they'd wake up and do it all again. Make breakfast, get kids ready for school, solve small problems, and celebrate tiny victories. They'd be Team Carter, forging ahead together through whatever came next. Because that's what families did. Not the perfect ones from storybooks, but the real ones built from patience and laughter and the quiet courage to keep showing up. The wooden family on the mantel stood watch over them all, 5 figures holding hands, carved with love, and finished at last. A beginning, an ending, a middle that would stretch out for years to come, all of it precious, all of it earned, all of it proof that sometimes love doesn't roar, it's carved quietly, patiently, until even silence learns to sing again.